Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Damage Report. I'm John Iadarola. Today is Big News Wednesday. We always say that every Wednesday is Big News Wednesday, but this is 50% bigger than any Big News Wednesday before. The one constant, JR Jackson. JR, how's it going?
Well, it's a Big News Wednesday, so I have to bring the big news. I was a little concerned that you were going to talk about Hunter Biden today, and I was like, well, I'll just come angry and ready to yell at John. But thankfully, no.
Wait, ready to yell at me because I cared to cover it at all, or what?
Oh yeah, because of that.
Well, so I came across on Twitter that he swore or something. I don't know.
More than that,
he's not a public figure. I don't care about Hunter Biden. He's not in the administration.
Racialist terms, and again.
Oh, I see. Oh, okay. Well, then that sucks. Thankfully, he's not in charge of our Israel-Palestine policy, so it doesn't matter. I'm sure that my brothers have said things that I don't agree with. They're not on the show. I don't understand. Oh God, people.
It's fun.
Okay, well, we're into Big News Wednesday. JR, thank you for being here. We've got a lot that we're gonna be talking about through the course of this show. And we're gonna be starting off with something that's gonna make us at least as angry, which is Joe Manchin. So that's gonna be fun. But we've got a lot coming, including 2 of the dumbest videos I've seen in some time. So get ready for that as well. And thank you to all of you who are already here. Please hit the like button and share the stream if you haven't already done that. And as we go through, if you want to send us tweets, super chats, comments, stuff like that, we will be responding to those in the 2 social breaks that we'll be taking today. We'll see what people think about that. So that's all coming up and more. And with that, JR, are you ready to talk about Hunter Biden? I mean the news.
Oh my God. Yes, I'm ready.
Okay, let's do it. I almost made another joke about Hunter Biden. I'm gonna avoid doing it. Anyway, so I enjoy going to The Intercept, and Ryan Grimm is one of my favorite journalists, actually. However, he had this article today that I saw about Republican fears that Joe Manchin's concrete hard opposition, the filibuster, might not be as durable or as predictable as they think. And I just thought, don't do that to me, buddy. Don't put out the football and then I run up to kick it, and then you laugh and pull it away, because that's definitely what's happening here. And it started like this. Republican senators are anything but confident that Joe Manchin will stand by his op-ed in West Virginia's Charleston Gazette Mail this weekend, promising to oppose his party's efforts to reform the filibuster, along with, let's not forget, his opposition to the For the People Act. So, like Ryan Grimm's good journalist, so he's got quotes from them, and that is what the Republicans are saying. So this is all, bear in mind, after Joe Manchin had his meeting with civil rights leaders about the filibuster and about the For the People Act. Bear in mind, Joe Manchin came out of that meeting still refusing to reform the filibuster and still against the For the People Act. Although he said the meeting, JR, was constructive and informative, it just didn't construct a Joe Manchin that cared about voter suppression, and it didn't inform him about anything that he didn't already know. He knew about all this stuff. He's still gonna be against it. So we're gonna have those Republican quotes soon. But just briefly, what did you think about this, the meeting with the civil rights leaders?
Politicians are gonna politic. That's all he's doing here. Oh, I'm gonna meet with some civil rights leaders and I'm gonna talk about the issues that they have with my stances on allowing the Republican Party to do everything they can to completely derail any kind of progress in the country. So yeah, I met with them and it was informative, and I learned some things. Okay. I wasn't there when he said that statement. Maybe he was walking by. Maybe no one got a chance to ask him the next question of, so what did you learn? What did they inform you of? Did it affect your decision on this? Because nope. You can just say anything's informative. Yeah, I was watching TV. I was watching some garbage reality TV, and it was informative. Was it informative? What did it inform you on? How stupid it is? Did it inform you that it's a smart thing?
JR,
did it inform you that it changes your mind?
I didn't know what happened below deck before I watched that show. Now I know a lot happens below deck. Anyway, yeah, what did it inform?
It's to pass the time. It's to say, yeah, I talk to the black folks. The black folks talk to me. I learned something from them. Not I dismissed them. I learned something from those black folks. So therefore, We good now? There's never a conclusion to these statements. It's always open-ended. I'm disappointed. Who are you disappointed in? Why are you disappointed in them? Hey, what are you gonna do now?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm just disappointed. I've been informed. Now what, Joe?
Yep. You know what, JR? Nothing. That's gonna happen. So, and that was what we think. So Republican senators, we're pretty sure that Joe Manchin means what he says. They're not though. So Tim Scott had to say, "You think it's over? I'm not confident on anything until the day after it's been done." So I appreciated his comments and thought that was a strong, smart move for the country, opposing everything. And I hope that he continues to have that approach to S1 as well as the filibuster. A strong, smart move, okay? Tommy Tuberville said, when asked if he thought Manchin's opposition was a done deal, "You can't guess at that." And here's the best statement. This is, there's two good ones. This is Joe Kennedy. "I don't know whether he will or won't. He understands that peace of mind up here comes with grabbing a principle and hanging on." Yeah, they care about their principles. "He's really good at withstanding the pressure, but they've put a lot of pressure on him. They really have. They've beat him like he stole Christmas, and they're not gonna stop." They didn't, what Grinch did you, they didn't beat the Grinch. That's exciting, I'd watch that, but they did not do that. "They're gonna call him names, they're gonna talk about his mama, they're gonna do everything they can. Knowing Joe as I know Joe, I don't think it'll do any good. Trust me, I've talked about his mama a ton, and it has never had any effect on him." So that is Joe Kennedy. We'll have one more, but they're so worried. Joe Kennedy's not super worried, but the others, they're just really worried, JR.
No, they're not.
Are they?
No, not at all. This is a continuing warning shot. It's, hey, Joe, we see all the pressure that's being put on you. We see them talking about you like your mama, whatever he said, like you stole Christmas, and they're talking about your mama. Hey, make sure you hold the line, because we will talk about you from now on if you decide to go that direction. Now, it's like a check-in. It's making sure. It's like, hey, you still okay, Joe? Okay, good. Without saying it directly. We're watching this very closely. You are the key. You better keep with the program, or else things are gonna get really bad for you.
Now, I wish that we had money to fund some animation, because I just want to have the Grinch like getting out of the shower and Stewie's there asking him, "Where's my Christmas?" I want to see that right now.
By the way, the Grinch, when he stole Christmas, you know what he had? What happened at the end of it? In case for all you who didn't get to read it because the libs canceled Dr. Seuss, the Grinch had a change of heart.
He did.
Grinch's heart
became a better person.
3-4 sizes that day, 2 times bigger that day, and he picked up the damn Christmas gifts and sent them back into the village. He changed his mind because it was right. But you can compare him to the Grinch when the libs are talking bad about him. What happened to the Grinch? Finish the story then, bro. Finish the story.
Do you even Grinch, bro? Yeah, exactly. Jesus. They didn't learn the lessons of the Grinch. Okay, so here's what Lindsey Graham had to say. "I think he will remain firm, because I think that's where West Virginia is at. He's a Democrat and he wants to help his Democratic colleagues, but he represents West Virginia. So from his point of view, I think he's doing his job. He's telling his Democratic colleagues, from where I come from, this is a bridge too far." The most important part of all of that is, I think he will, because I think that's where West Virginia is at. Oh, that's where you think West Virginia is at. That's the interesting thing about thinking in the age of the internet. Sometimes you can confirm or deny your thoughts by looking for actual evidence. And no, that's not at all where West Virginia is at. Over 79% of West Virginia voters say they support the For the People Act, including 76% of Republicans and 79% of independents. 76% of Republicans support it. 76% of Republicans don't support free shotgun day, but they support the For the People Act. But I think that they're against it. And the thing is, that is as stupid coming out of his mouth as it is when Joe Manchin implies that he's just doing what West Virginia really wants. They almost couldn't be more unified in their support for this. If you're from outside of the US or whatever, you may not know, nothing gets 79% approval. Literally nothing gets it. Vaccination doesn't get it, by the way. But this is one of the bits of cover that they use to hide the real reasons that Joe Manchin is doing what he's doing.
Yeah, you're supposed to ignore the polls. You're supposed to ignore what people have told you. You're supposed to ignore the people that have sent letters and called your office, because that's something from 1972 that happens. I don't want to discourage people from that. But after it's all said and done, you just tell the people what it is that they believe to their face. So the people of West Virginia told me that they don't want, he said this all, they don't want a higher minimum wage. So do you think people in West Virginia are like, yeah, you know what? That's $7.25. That's fine. Hey, you know what? To my employer who's gonna raise my minimum wage, double it potentially. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna let you keep that. I'm okay. That's cool. I don't need that gas money. No food. Come on. I work at McDonald's. I'll just take the free ones. That's what the people of West Virginia are saying, right? Come on, man. Like the upside down world that they want to pitch us to tell us that rich billionaires, who we just discovered yesterday, aren't paying their taxes and they would like more money. But poor people that are making $7.25 an hour are like, I'm good. You keep that.
Well, look, this nonsense, let's put that aside for a second. Let's talk about what's real. There have been a lot of attempts to explain why Joe Manchin and other senators like him, but especially Joe Manchin, isn't gonna vote for anything and doesn't support even mild reform to the filibuster to make it actually like the filibuster. It's that he's too dumb. He doesn't know the history. We need to sit him down and explain it to him. He doesn't get the electoral consequences of his obstructionism. He doesn't know about the history of the filibuster when it comes to civil rights. He really just cares about bipartisanship. There actually are Republicans that can cross over, and this is how you do it. Those are all, I love you for having debates. We love a vigorous debate, but those are not the reason. Some of them might also be true. I think there's a lot about history he doesn't know, and he seems kind of dumb, but that's not the actual reason. What's the actual reason? Well, thankfully, it's coming out. People are talking about it. Here is AOC.
Is that HR 1 stands up against lobbyists and dark money. And I would reckon to think that this is probably just as much a part of Joe Manchin's calculus as anything else. Because when it comes to this bipartisan argument, I gotta tell you, I don't buy it. Because Joe Manchin has voted for bills that have not been bipartisan before. Look at the American Rescue Plan. So this is not just about bipartisanship. This is, I think, because you look at the Koch brothers and you look at, organizations like the Heritage Foundation and conservative lobby groups that are doing a victory lap, claiming victory over the fact that Manchin refuses to change on the filibuster. And I think that these two things are very closely intertwined. And I think that there's a desire to make this just about protecting the franchise, but protecting our democracy is also about making sure that we give lobbyists and dark money groups, which are funding these attacks on the right to vote, the boot. But, corporate money has a very, very tight grip on both parties. And I think that has to do with the calculus in this situation that people aren't really discussing enough.
That's definitely true. Great job by AOC there, Jan.
100%. 100% is the thing. That's what's not getting said. And as she went through that whole thing, there'll be people that go, "What? That doesn't happen, does it?" Because that's the first level of detachment. The other one is, oh, look at her talking about these unrelated issues. Like it's just this is why you demonize people versus their policies and what they're saying. No one is going to address what AOC is saying. They're going to say, look at AOC talking again. That's all it takes. Oh, AOC's talking. She must be saying something I hate. Oh, she's saying something against what Joe Manchin's doing and how corporate money has a hold on politicians across the board. I thought we liked both sides' arguments. Why don't we love this one? Why isn't the media lapping this up? AOC said it's a both sides problem. Both sides are corrupted by corporate money. Why don't we say that? Why aren't we talking about the both sides? She's nice and fair.
Yeah, you're right. Normally they'd be all over that. Not this one. Especially because the same things that she's indicating are corrupting both parties are also corrupting the media that doesn't want to talk about the fact that they're corrupted. You're totally right. Yes, and she's right. Yeah, he occasionally votes for some things. We occasionally, and we shouldn't say he doesn't support anything. There are some things that he and other corporate Democrats can support that don't actually endanger the stranglehold that corporate America and the 1% have on the American political system. But there are some things that they will not allow. And I will actually say we're sort of lumping two things together here. It's his opposition to the For the People Act and his opposition to doing anything about the filibuster. I actually think he would be much more likely to support the bill than reforming the filibuster, because the bill, all they need to do, I think, to get him to support it is to take out the fact that dark money disclosures would be enhanced and that sort of thing. Like, obviously his corporate overlords don't want their role in politics to be more obvious. Most of it he's probably okay with, but the filibuster is bigger, because getting rid of the filibuster means he now has to actually engage with every piece of legislation. Right now he doesn't. So does he actually support the infrastructure bill? Will he actually support something that has to do with the pharmaceutical industries? All this, he is protected from having to vote at all on those bills by the fact that they'll just automatically be filibustered. He doesn't actually want that. A case could be made that he's not necessarily that interested in it becoming easier for Democratic senators to get elected, because then eventually the filibuster might not even be necessary. It might not even matter if the actual distribution of power in the Senate was reflective of the actual will of the people, because that would again put him in a position where he has to actually vote on legislation that potentially endangers the only constituents of his that he actually cares about.
And those are those.
It's all corruption.
And all those are corporations. By the way, he could, my last thought on this section of his thought process, he can honestly say, I would like for Americans to make more money. I would like for voting rights to pass. I would like for women to get paid equal amounts as their male counterparts. I would, but the people who pay me don't want that. I work for them. There's plenty of people, I'm sure there's folks that work at Fox News that don't like the conservative lying agenda that most of the shows on there push. But I'm just a producer on the show, bro. It's just the whole network is pushing this direction. I can't go any different. I don't want to, but they're paying me to do differently. That's all that he's saying. It's all the politicians are. They go into office saying they want to do a certain thing, and then once they're there, they start doing other things based off of who's paying them and who's influencing them, not based off of their principles anymore. Yeah. So I just get paid by my bosses to do their work. That's Joe Manchin's doing. He's not doing work for himself or for his constituents. He's doing it for the people who are paying them.
Yeah, related to this, we got a super chat from Hilltop Ironworks who says, glad that Bowman and AOC are hinting at corporate money, but they should be specific. Read off FEC filings during the next interview. That's spicy. Yeah, I'm definitely in favor of that. We're gonna have to unfortunately jump around a little bit, but to go to Jamal Bowman's tweet, he said Congress could end this oligarchy today if they wanted to, but they don't, and we know why. They don't serve the people. The filibuster, bipartisanship, and every myth perpetuated by Manchin and so-called moderates preserves a system built for and by the wealthy elite, which it's not pulling any punches there. Yeah, that's the case. That's what it's upholding. All this myth stuff is nonsense. But let's go into one bit of the myth and then show you what gets killed by that continued nonsense. So earlier today, the Republicans in the Senate once again deployed the filibuster, not in a way that actually hurts them, where they have to actually talk and do it like in the movies and all that. It's just an automatic thing, and then it's over. We're done. We're already moving on. And they killed the Paycheck Fairness Act. So it failed to pass a cloture vote by a 49-50 margin. It passed the House in April, 217 to 210 vote along party lines. So no Republicans voted for it, for women to be ensured equal pay for equal work to men. So, and you're probably wondering, hey, wait, didn't any of the Republican women vote for it? No, they didn't. Republican women in the Senate and the House voted against women receiving equal pay. The reason it's 49 rather than 50 is that for some reason Senator Gillibrand didn't vote on it, even though this is like one of her biggest priorities. I don't entirely understand that. But anyway, it was filibustered. And now it's done. We're done. We're not gonna get it. Doesn't matter that it's super popular. It's already bipartisan in the way that matters. It's done. So why? Where were the good Republicans, JR? Why didn't the good Republicans support it? We could do it. It's so important. And Joe Manchin, he's disappointed. He said every American deserves to have a good paying job with a livable wage in order to provide for their family and contribute to their community. And being a woman shouldn't impact being able to make ends meet. The first vote I took in the Senate was for paycheck fairness, and it is far past time for these inequalities to be addressed. As an original co-sponsor of this bill, I am disappointed that the Senate was unable to pass this much needed legislation, but I will continue the fight for equal pay across the United States. Will I do the one thing necessary to make it happen? Getting rid of the filibuster? No, screw women. They can make whatever they end up making. I don't care, but I am disappointed in the meantime. We were unable to pass it. I don't know why. It's something probably complicated, but I'm very disappointed about the process.
I can't figure it out. Hey, 2 quick questions after that statement, which I don't think he said. He must have put it down as a statement and not actually spoken to anyone. Although he would have gotten the same lack of responses and questions, even if he did. But he says he's been fighting for paycheck fairness from the beginning, and he's disappointed. One question: who are you disappointed in, Joe? Who are you disappointed in? Because look what he said. I'm an original co-sponsor of this bill. I'm disappointed that the Senate was unable to pass. You stressed that, was unable to pass this much needed legislation. Why weren't they able to pass it? He's covering for the people who are making sure these things don't pass. You think a politician doesn't know who voted against something that you co-sponsored? You co-sponsor a bill and you have no idea who exactly is voting against your bill. When you co-sponsor a bill, these are things that people put their names on so they can run on them for re-election. Anytime a politician has any kind of legislation, they like to say, I passed this, I was the co-sponsor on that. There was a bipartisan agreement here and I was a part of it. Look, my name is on the bill. They want to put their name on things so they have some kind of legacy where people can vote for them again. This is supposed to be very important to him, but he doesn't want to name the people that are against his bill. He doesn't say it. It's the Senate that failed it. It's the Senate. So you can include any senator. You can include anyone. You can say Schumer's part of the issue because he's in the Senate, right? Because they failed to pass it, number one. So first off, he didn't point out who's the one who's stopping it. And number two, how are you gonna continue this fight? You said you're gonna continue the fight. How? What's next? There's no, those questions don't have to be answered because there's no answer to them. There's no one that he's upset at, and there's nothing else he's gonna do.
He's not gonna do the only things that would actually matter. They're not gonna support it. They don't care. You're not gonna get 1, you're not gonna get 2, you damn sure aren't gonna get 10. It's just not gonna happen. So that is another thing that has died thanks to his nonsense, dishonest, he's not even saying the real reason why, support for the filibuster.
Give this fool a week, ask him in a week. What are you doing now, Joe? Hey, women are still making less than their male counterparts. What are you doing now? Hey, I've got women in West Virginia on the phone, Joe. You know those people you say you represent? They're looking to find out what you're gonna do next. You told us you're fighting still. What's next?
Well, you can't make a bipartisanship omelet without breaking a few women's aspiration to make what they deserve. Okay, with that, we are gonna take our first break. We're gonna check in with the audience, see what they've been saying. Lots more news to come, including we're gonna be checking in on the Alabama coal miners strike. And as I said earlier, 2 of the stupidest videos I've seen in a very long time after this. Okay, let's see what's going on out there. New members, thank you on YouTube to Mandy Johnsgard and Patrick Wright for becoming tier 1 members, getting access to our emojis. Recently, we got a Jason Carter emoji. How fun is that? Come on, Jason's the best. We also in the super chats, Franklin Sharpslicer says some Repubos should follow the lead of the Dolphins, toke on a puffer, but they would bogart it to only the wealthy, which isn't healthy, and all the commoners would suffer. P.S. Jenk's not too good at reading poems. Love him though. Well, I think I might have mangled that one a little bit, but I did like the reference to that amazing story about the dolphins. Jay, are you familiar with that?
Oh yeah, that's lovely.
That's crazy. I love animals. Man, animals are the best. Not primates though, and certainly not what they later become. Dragon Slayer Dragon says civil rights leaders, the filibuster is racist. Manchin, you know how when you pour a cup of coffee, how it's too hot? That's probably similar to what was going on there. Oh my God. Over in Twitch, Stephmont says, holy crap, has today sucked? Thankfully, I don't need to be anywhere for a while, so I can sit down and actually enjoy the whole show. Stephmont, I don't know why it's sucking, but I hope that the show makes it a little bit better. Lucy Winterwolf subscribes to tier 1 and says, woohoo, ahoy, mateys and comrades. Thank you to all of you mateys and comrades out there. Thank you also to Depressed Progressive who gifted 5 tier 1 subs, very nice of you. Brandy Lou 2 gifted 5 as well. Brandy Lou 2 makes me think of the Grinch every time because of Cindy Lou Who.
The Grinch is the theme today.
You better, Brandy Lou, watch out because there's people coming and they have billy clubs. Anyway, Dragon Song Yessie gifted a tier 1 sub, thank you for that. Drew in Georgia said Manchin supported the voting legislation when it was crafted in 2019. It is virtually unchanged. Why did he support it then but opposes it now? Exactly. That's a great point. It's just like going through all these iterations. Like recently, some of his old statements about the filibuster and how he was really frustrated with its use have come back up. But like, so sometimes we do delve into that. It's like a form of fact checking. But we also know that it's pointless now. Like nothing he says actually, I don't know if he's lying more now than he was in 2019, but I know there was dishonesty to go around in all cases. It's totally true. And by the way, he says we don't need HR 1. We've got the John Lewis voting bill. Mitch McConnell just came out against it, said it's unnecessary. So that's one more Republican who is not so good, not going to be signing on. Where are the 10 going to come from? I don't know. Mitt Romney won't even commit to supporting, not the For the People Act. That's never going to happen. He hasn't even committed to the John Lewis voting bill yet. It's amazing. Okay, let's see. Just freaking Ortega says just popping in to say hello to everyone. Hope all is well with everyone. Staying as sane and safe as possible. Thank you to all mods, TYT, TDR, John and JR. You're the real MVPs. Thank you so much. Very nice of you. Raider Khalifa subscribed for 2 months. Thank you for that. Why not Octavus subscribed for 10 months, hitting that double digit mark. Wow. I also noticed that BC Trump at the Produce Dragons upgraded their membership on YouTube to tier 3. That live Q&A is coming up, so definitely stay tuned for that. Probably next week it's happening. We've had something like 5 now at this point. We always have a lot of fun together. And in the members' comments, Matthew says, companies want the freedom of speech, have their CEOs go on the record for these issues. We know where the money is coming from, but we don't know what is being said behind closed doors. Yeah. Well, we're actually gonna be talking about dark money in just a little bit and how it's affecting the voting audit that's going on in Arizona right now. Spoiler alert, it's dirty. But that is just one of many stories that are coming up. So you're not gonna wanna miss the rest of the show. With that, we'll be back in just a few. Okay, so let's see what's going on out there. A lot of workers rightfully angry at the situation that has faced them coming out of the pandemic. I would say not nearly enough, hashtag general strike, but let's turn to one. Down in Alabama, there is a major strike going on. About 1,100 coal miners represented by the United Mine Workers of America in Brookwood, Alabama have been on strike since the start of April against Warrior Met Coal amid new union contract negotiations. And wait until you get a load of some of the numbers that we're talking about here. The current agreement that the union has right now was negotiated as Warrior Met emerged from bankruptcy proceedings of the former Walter Energy, which declared bankruptcy 5 years ago. Union members say that in that deal, because it was coming out of bankruptcy, they made numerous concessions in pay and benefits, holidays, overtime, and other areas so that the company could keep going and could come out of bankruptcy. And obviously the idea is that at some point, if the company becomes profitable again, then they should get those concessions back. Why would they continue to suffer when the company no longer was? They say that miners lost about $6 an hour under the bankruptcy contract, which added up even more when you consider the accumulation of overtime. So $6 really, well, we're gonna go back to this graphic in just a second, but $6 an hour, JR, is a massive cut to pay. It doesn't matter what you make. $6 coming out of it, well, unless you're like a billionaire, is very significant. We talk often about raising the minimum wage by a couple of dollars. So right off the bat, not even considering things having to do with benefits and holiday and overtime and all that, that is a big concession. And I can understand why.
Good.
Well, why they would want to fix that situation as fast as possible.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, $6 you're losing from your wage is close to an entire wage for a lot of people that are working minimum wage. That's an entire wage. So if the minimum wage we assume is enough to allow people to just live, think about taking almost that much away from someone's salary. If that's enough, you're taking enough from someone else's salary. That should be pretty significant. It should be something you might want to remedy. Also, this whole loyalty thing that the workers looks like that they gave to this company to make sure they stayed afloat so they can continue to keep their jobs. It's like it's a nice exchange, just doesn't get reciprocated. And we're beginning to see why so many conservatives love Donald Trump, because that's the epitome of the way he does business. The way he did politics as well, actually. Hey, 100% complete, undying, blind loyalty to me. And when it needs to be reciprocated, F you. What's wrong with you? Kidding me?
Yeah.
I'm Donald Trump. Or in this case, I'm, what's this, Maxwood Energy? What is it? Met Energy? Warrior Met Energy.
Warrior Met Coal, yeah.
How dare you? So or maybe it's just, hopefully they'll forget about it. Maybe they make so much damn money, it just doesn't matter. They'll forget about their money and their benefits. What do they give away? Benefits, holidays, overtime pay. Are you kidding me? All of this is given away so you can stay afloat. And then once you're afloat, you start shoving people off the boat.
Exactly, and it's even gonna get a little bit worse, actually. But yeah, so $6 an hour loss. They have a tentative offer where the company's proposing to the union a $1.50 raise over 5 years, not immediately.
Jesus.
Over 5 years. So unless they become much more benevolent over those 5 years, you're looking at 20 years to get back what you lost in helping the company get out of bankruptcy. And they also say that the new offer hits their 401k and their pension plans. They have to have longer mandatory shifts and stuff like that. So that's obviously crazy. Now, as I said, it does get worse really fast. I want to address something that I saw going on in the YouTube chat, which is bigger question. Why are we mining coal at all? And I saw some talk about like, yeah, but they're coal workers. Totally with you. I would prefer if we never extracted another handful of coal out of the ground. That said, while it's happening, I want the workers to be respected as I want the workers in basically every field to be respected. I would love for them to receive raises in pay and then be trained for other industries, totally. But as long as it's happening, I'm not okay with workers being exploited even in industries that I hate or think that are fundamentally immoral or doing damage. So I think that I'm being consistent with my values, but I'm always down to be checked, so thank you for that. Now really fast, in terms of the disrespect, James Treweek says we were required to work 6, sometimes 7 days a week for 12 hours a day. We worked on a 4-strike system, which meant missing 4 days in a year resulted in termination. The only thing that was accepted as an excuse was a death in the immediate family. We had to work sick with the flu and many other illnesses in fear of losing our jobs. That is insane. 4 days, you're done. After all that, after all the suffering and the helping the company out, you could do, God only knows how many effectively double shifts for weeks at a time. And if you get sick and you miss a day, that is insane. The only acceptable excuse was a death in the family.
In the immediate family. So I don't know if that includes your grandmother. I don't know if it includes your aunt. Maybe does it include your niece, nephew? Because it's not direct. You know, it's pretty crazy. And then probably have to get some kind of proof as to if this really happened. Because the first thought is also they must be scamming us. And this always brings a thought to my head now. Anytime we hear about what corporations or politicians, anyone that has a particular set of power does to normal people, in this case, corporations and businesses, their demands for their employees, if you flip and think about if the employees demanded this of their employers before they do anything, would you be on these employees' side? Because we're already automatically thinking employees suck and they're given this job and this opportunity to build a company into this multi-billion-dollar corporation. They're the ones who are doing it. But if these employees come to the employers and start telling them, hey, this is what we're gonna do. You're gonna give me a 110% increase in pay, and I'm gonna take as many days off as I want. And then after that, you're gonna get, it's like these demands are outrageous. Yeah. And then when people stand up against them, we go, how dare they? Yeah. Why don't we have the same kind of respect for these workers that we have for corporations that we should have no kind of connection to? What are they doing for us that we have such this mentality?
I agree. And that mentality, let's show maybe one of the natural outgrowths of that. So we've got these coal miners that are striking in Alabama, and I know what you're probably thinking. Republicans love coal, so they love the those who have been left behind. So they've got to be down there on the picket line to support it. No, they hate them. They want their unions to fail. They want them to get paid as little as possible. So I don't know. Like, there's probably a lot of coal workers that would probably on site knee-jerk hate someone like me and assume that I'm like the devil, some commie, but I want you to make more money and I want you to be better off. They don't. Is that weird? Maybe think about that. But anyway, in addition to not getting support from Republicans, they are now facing the same basic thing that happens to all who are protesting in some form. They're being brutalized and intimidated. And in fact, we have video of that. Yeah, so that apparently just happens. According to the UMWA International President, Warrior Met personnel, either management or non-union workers, have repeatedly struck our members who are engaging in legal picket line activities with their vehicles. That one was on video, but apparently it's just a thing that happens now. They say we have members in casts, we have members in the hospital, we have members who are concerned about their families and potential of violence against them if they come to the picket line. So, and where's Tucker Carlson? Where's Ben Shapiro? These are supposedly your people. You pretend that you care about them. They're not only getting left behind economically, as the company is now doing much better. Obviously, during the pandemic, there was a downturn, as there was with most industries, but now they're pulling in literally hundreds of millions of dollars in net income. They can afford to raise those wages. In addition to that, the people who are doing, isn't the First Amendment, they say that that's what the intellectual dark web and all that is about? They're participating in it. Now, I know that I sometimes have to remind these people that the First Amendment is about more than giving high-paid speeches at college campuses. It's about organizing for your rights and for pay as well. And now they're being attempted to be scared away. People have already been injured. They've already been put in the hospital. And it's not really even being talked about.
Isn't it weird? The powers that be, this is like a standard reaction. The powers that be, once they're finally confronted after getting away with these kinds of thefts of normal people's wages and their workers' rights, after getting away with it for so long, when someone finally says, you know what, we're tired of it, the next response is violence. Isn't that crazy? It's been since the beginning. I mean, whatever beginnings you want to start with, but just the way the country was built off of just enslaved people. Hey, they get online, start going with violence, murder, kill, separation, intimidation. That's the way we're still doing it. It's 2021. Just because now we have workers of every race that are now getting used like this is like the basis for like business in America. Hey, once we get through using you and abusing you and getting away with it for long enough, you say, hey, stop it, and we start killing, murdering, even in this case, just injuring and intimidation. They're worried about their families now back at home, whether or not they're gonna do something to them. This is based off your job. This isn't anything crazy and over the top. The thing that we tell Americans to do from the beginning, hey, start working, hey, start working, hey, start working. And they work their whole lives and they actually wanna get paid for that work. And now we start assaulting them. This is and then use other people for it as well. So use other lower level people, other employees, maybe who aren't in the union, and executives, of course. They'll be the ones to help do this. Just utilize it. Go with violence.
Go with violence, and then remember, several state legislatures have approved of exactly what you saw in that video. If they get in your way, you get to hit them. That's what they say. Now, they weren't thinking of coal miners when they were passing that. But that's what people want to do. They want to get away with this violence, and they've been allowed to do so. By the way, really fast, if Bernie Sanders or AOC went down to stand with the picketers, I wonder what would happen. It would be consistent. They support striking workers who want higher wages all the time. I'm sure that they support these strikers. So I wonder. I think they should do it. I know a lot of people in the chat are like, no, screw them, they're Trump supporters. Well, but maybe this would be an opportunity to show them that the left is actually on their side and they should accept that. Anyway, really fast, let's turn to this next story because it does tie in with what we were talking about earlier about dark money. Right now in Arizona, they are continuing their audit of the ballots with their cyber ninjas and their belief that it's gonna result in Donald Trump being instated as president, which it totally is not. There's a lot of issues with that. One of them, though, is monetary. And that is that we don't know exactly where the money for this audit of the ballots is coming from. You have Republicans in the Arizona State Senate, so they came up with this and they allocated $150,000 to pay for it, but that is not enough to cover the entire thing. They could have paid everything, but they did not, leaving it open for the influence of dark money, and that is what we have gotten. So there's this review that was done by Open Secrets and The Guardian. They've been looking into this because the company Cyber Ninjas will not say where they got all of the money. We do know that at least 150K of it came from Voices and Votes, which just based on the name, that's gonna end up being bad. But that's run by Christina Bobb, an anchor for One America News Network. The group is also run with the White House correspondent Chanel Rion, literally one of the craziest people in the entire country, and her fiance. Now, despite that, and despite the fact that Christina Bobb plugs the effort on air on OAN. So it's being run, an organization run by multiple of their on-air personalities. It's being talked about on air. They told BuzzFeed that OANN is not in any way affiliated with it. It objectively is. Like, you can't just, it is. It's not up to you at that point. So we know that that's a lot of money. We know that Lynn Wood may be crazier than Chanel Rion. That is entirely possible. Donated $50,000 to that group for the review. And there's other stuff too. There's this former chief executive for Overstock.com, Patrick Byrne. But we don't know if there might be other organizations, domestic, international. I don't know. But I know that the Republican Party is really focused on this. And this is exactly what the Republicans are trying to keep the system like in this situation. This is the status quo they want when they try to stop in the For the People Act the disclosure of dark money. They love the fact that all these billionaires and groups can be throwing money at stuff like this without anyone even knowing about it.
That's the plan. So, and again, and this stuff does get reported now. We do know about the dark money, but when does it actually get highlighted? When does someone say, hey, look what's happening with this dark money? You might want to wonder what their interest is in funding such a thing like this. Why don't they want to be known? Why don't they want their faces connected to their funds that they're doing to help push this? Yeah. Politically, if you're really doing something for people, if you're doing something to help election security across the country, don't you want your face attached to that? I mean, anyone else that does something good for the people wants their face attached to it, especially political groups. Hey, why not corporations that want to make sure they have a nice positive outlook on this general society? You would think they'd be like, yes, we at whatever organization and created PAC that we just put together have given $1 million to this effort because we're there for the American people. No, they're hiding and they're making sure you can't see them. Why is that? Criminals hide. Criminals make sure you can't see their actions after they've done them. But somehow we can't get that connection in through our heads. I don't understand it.
I agree. I mean, look, we on air, when people give us a donation via super chat, we read it literally on air. Where's the dark money? I don't know. Yeah, you'd think they'd be so excited. I mean, if you're an organization like Voices and Votes and you get this big donation, why aren't you proud of that? Why is that supposed to be hidden? Weird, a little bit suspicious, as well as literally everything else having to do with this story. And this is, by the way, what Joe Manchin is helping to sustain.
Absolutely, I'm glad you tied that back to that.
Anyway, okay, with that, we do have to take our second to last break of the hour. But when we come back, we get into the stupid and the offensive attacks against people just desperately trying to get a minimum wage job. Should we not be angry at Donald Trump for anything having to do with coronavirus? Lindsey Graham is gonna make the case and more after this. Okay, so let's do some of that disclosure live right now. In the members' comments, Glamour Dragon says, so freaking disgusting what corporations do to the people who actually are the reason they have a company. Totally, and not just in that they do the work, that I'm assuming tireless, difficult coal mining work. I've spent about 3 hours in a coal mine. I'm assuming it's very difficult, but they also gave up a ton of money, and the managers just don't care. 4 days lost, and they will fire you. I cannot imagine treating people like that. Really fast though, I did bring up, what if Bernie or AOC were to go down and march with them? Jared, do you have any thoughts about that? What do you think the union or the coal miners would say about that?
I wonder. That's what would make it actually really good. They'd have to go with some kind of like security first, just in case.
Definitely, like Iron Man.
But you know what? Yeah, it's one of those things that would make some heads spin, and they'd be like, "Wait, this doesn't compute. I thought you guys hated us." Because they've been told so much by the only people they listen to, and this is a broad generalization. I'm sure there's plenty of union workers who understand, but that would be like, wait, you guys are supposed to hate us. What's going on? This must be a political exercise. And I don't know. It allows some smoke to come out of their ears, but eventually maybe they'll pick up on the fact that this is reality.
Yeah, we'll see.
I want to see it.
Okay, Doomslayer Dragon, the super chat says, using today's show to cheer myself up after another of my favorite dragon-themed YouTubers announced their retirement. Who's the other dragon-themed YouTuber?
Who is this fraud? Whoever it is, they retired.
I wonder. There are a few YouTubers that I follow, none of them that dragony. Jason R says, maybe Ben Shapiro should go down there and tell all those miners that their union is bad and they should just rely on the mine owners to do the right thing. If he says it real fast, it will work. I don't know. We honestly, we don't know what your average coal miner is like. It is entirely possible they're not as uniformly conservative as you might imagine. Right. I'm sure some of them probably watch Ben Shapiro and he despises unions and tries to get as many workers to despise them as well. Beth Waller says 150 over 5 years is 30 cents per year. Yep. And that's all that's being offered. Matt E says veterans aren't considered the public, thus we aren't eligible for Washington state vaccine lottery. Why would that be the case? That seems crazy.
What's the barrier? What made that happen?
That being a veteran means that you're not a part of the public in terms of being entered in the lottery. I mean, look, in reality and practice, it's probably not gonna matter because your chances are 1 in a million, but they should definitely be given a position in it if they've gotten the vaccine. Sorry about that. Let's see. Melissa the Defender Dragon gifted tier 1 sub over on Twitch. Thank you for that. Shoegaze Dragon Georgie hit 8 months as a subscriber. Thank you so much. Let's see. Tempo Dan says when Fox is to your left, you lost the right to use the D. Is that a thing about the D block? I'm not even sure, Tempo Dan, what you're referring to there. I don't love it though. Let's see what's going on over at hashtag TDR Live. Jed Price says, since Manchin won't get rid of the filibuster, I consider his outrage over filibustered bills to be fake. Yeah, you're very disappointed, but not that disappointed, it turns out. And as I said earlier, hashtag abolish the Senate. Let's get rid of it. Real Response Dragon subscribed for 5 months. Trailer Parks PVSR for 3 months. Shenanigans for 8. Thank you to all of you over on Twitch who are members. We couldn't appreciate it more. Let's see. Jam Tomb says that abuse of the protesters is old hat abuse. Totally true. It is becoming so common. We just talked about it with the helicopter yesterday. That said, more news. Okay, JR, the news is about to get potentially even worse, certainly more condescending. And as we go into this story, bear in mind what we were just talking about coal miners working to get paid what they think they deserve as we get into this. Fox News recently had on Art Laffer, the economist, the classic supply side economics guy, and they had a discussion about $15 an hour minimum wage. Remember, Fox News broadcast to a group that they say is filled with anxiety about their economic situation, and this is the message they gave to them.
For those people, Sandra, who are coming into the labor force brand fresh, not old timers who've been around for a while, the poor, the minorities, the disenfranchised, those with less education, young people who haven't had the job experience, these people aren't worth $15 an hour in most cases. And so therefore, when you have a $15 an hour minimum wage, they don't get that first job. They don't get the requisite skills to earn above the minimum wage. And after a few years, they become unemployable. And after becoming unemployable, they become hostile.
Okay, so JR, that's bad in a lot of ways. Some of them perhaps are obvious, some maybe not so much. I have a few thoughts. What did you think about Art Laffer's point there?
So Art, why do you hate the American people? Why do some of those people come in without the skills necessary? And then after they get, what do you say, not radicalized, then they get not violent. There's a term you use right at the end, like they're just these angry group of people that have just, they've been given so many opportunities and they just got mad because they suck, because they don't deserve life. They don't deserve a livable wage. This is what libs that everyone says are these radical, bloodthirsty socialists have been saying. You don't support Americans. You don't love this country. You dislike their existence. So when I go back when Sean Hannity was mad because people said that you don't like clean air and clean water, they said, of course the Republican Party likes clean air and clean water. And every time we talk about clean air and clean water, you talk about how these people don't deserve it because they're lower than dirt. They don't deserve it. You don't get basic human factors to live your life. You don't get them. Hey, food on the table and kids. Who cares? What are you talking about? You don't deserve it because the minimum wage is only strictly for 16-year-olds entering the workforce to build some kind of life skills to then take themselves to the next step.
Yeah.
Which one of these jobs builds some kind of basis when you're getting paid $7 an hour to then become a CEO of some company and be a bloodthirsty bad person that I'm not gonna cuss on air about? So how does that build you to that point? No one gives you that. Does it give you some skills to go to college when you're 16, working at McDonald's? The next step then going on and then incurring all of that debt? None of this is talked about. It just says, oh, it's so simple. You work a $7 job, then it goes to 10, then it goes to 15, then it goes to 20. Next you know, you're making $1 billion. That's not how this works, bro. None of that works that way. There's plenty of people that have full-on families that work 2 minimum wage jobs because they need to somehow feed them and then put gas in their car to get to that same job that takes everything else from them.
Yeah, that's totally true. Everything you said is true. I mean, I would add, and we have to add this to virtually every one of these Fox segments that we respond to. Minimum wage jobs are not just transitional jobs for 17-year-olds. That's not what it is. There is not a conversation on Fox that does not pretend or assume that these are just supposed to be things that you get for a little bit, you get some job experience, then you move on to something else. That is not how it works for everyone. Lots of people are older, they're desperately trying to stay alive, to keep their family fed and housed, working 1 or 2 jobs like this. They don't have the privilege to be thinking about their job, like their skills growth for later careers or whatever. They're trying to live in their actual life with a job that isn't paying them nearly enough. Not everybody in McDonald's is 14. Even the 14-year-olds deserve to make more money, but they're not all that age. And just the assumption that we're only because for them it was, oh, I worked one summer at Dairy Queen, that's what it is. No, for a lot of people, that's not what it is. But specifically here for Art Laffer, as many people have now acknowledged, what he said was not that these positions aren't worth $15. He said these people aren't worth $15. It's not that the role just doesn't merit it. I just don't value fries, being prepared enough. It's these people, the poor, the young, the minorities. I don't even understand how he got to including all of those groups and people who are newly entering the job market. Yes, the young are newly entering the job market. What are you talking about? Minorities are newly entering the job market. They're just living in America. That's everybody. But those people are not worth $15. They're not good enough. That is an insane thing that got no response from the host there.
Well, that's because that's the normal thought process. It's the reason why the basis for all this. He pointed out the poor, the minorities don't deserve it. That's why when you see a minority with something, and then maybe they're making a certain amount of money that you can tell, say like pro athletes, people hate that. They hate it. They go, you don't even deserve that. Overpaid athletes. Have you ever heard that term before? It's the first thing they say about them, because apparently they don't do the right amount of work to get that amount of money. I'm jealous that they're getting more than me, because when I look at that type of person, that person doesn't deserve it.
Yeah.
They don't deserve it because I'm seeing who it is. This is the reason when people keep talking about how black folks and whatever minorities always bring up race, we bring it up because you keep feeding it and throwing it at my face. Somehow the minorities don't deserve it. So when these minorities do get what you think they don't deserve, it's time to get upset with them and tell them how much a piece of garbage they are and they don't deserve this and deserve that, overpaid, you can't do this, you can't do that, how dare you speak up, just shut up and dribble. It's all derogatory things to make sure that you find yourself mentally on this superiority complex over someone else that is the other. It's constant and it's every day to the point where people don't even see it, but they definitely internalize it.
I do. I have exactly that sort of jealousy that you do, but not the form that you said. I am jealous of the athlete, but not for me. I just think that the wrong athletes are making the money. It should all go to Simone Biles. Did you watch her? It's been 6 years since she finished a world competition at anything other than #1. She should get all of their money. They don't deserve it like she does. Anyway,
yep.
Yes. Now that said, we are running low on time. Let's talk about Lindsey Graham. Isn't that what you requested that, right? You sent me an email last night. Let's do some Lindsey Graham.
I don't know why we didn't start with this.
I know. Well, we wanted to get to Hunter Biden first. Okay, let's move into this. Lindsey Graham is frustrated that with the new conversation we're having about the possible origins of COVID-19, that people are still frustrated at all with the way the pandemic was handled here. Here's Lindsey Graham.
Why does this matter? If Trump was right about the lab leak, it would change the image the public had of President Trump regarding the coronavirus.
No, it wouldn't, and it certainly shouldn't. So what they're saying is, if it is that originally COVID-19 was released in some way from a lab, then why are you all mad at Trump? First of all, what an amazing rewriting of history that Trump at the beginning said it was released from this lab, and then what? First of all, he just spread a bunch of conspiracy theories, and what he said about it changed literally every day. There are a number of tweets of him talking about how awesome the Chinese government was doing at containing the whole thing. They're doing the best job ever. That was before it was here. So I guess that's not what you're talking about, Lindsey Graham. You're talking about some other point on that continuum where he said what? That they purposefully released it, that they accidentally released it, whatever. It wouldn't matter though, JR, because the thing is, it got here. And so if he was right, let's say whatever he was right about, and Lindsey Graham is not specific there, wouldn't that make it even worse that he didn't do anything to protect us from it? If he was apparently so clued into exactly what was going on with COVID, then why did 595,301 people already die from it if he was so right?
Well, Donald Trump continues to be able to be that guy because he can be on the right side of it when he's wrong and on the wrong side of it when he's right. It just doesn't matter. Just put him in the right spot to make him look better. So again, yeah, he knew everything about COVID, but then he didn't. And if he did know everything about COVID and where it was coming, which people said he knew, they denied that because it would make him look like he just ignored it, papered over it, and downplayed it, which he did. So whichever scenario fits the right time to talk about how great Donald Trump was in his response, you just insert Donald Trump's name there. And anytime we find the real responsibilities that he neglected there, Donald Trump had nothing to do with that. It's just pull him out, put him back in whenever you need, and then somehow idiots follow behind. And this is just a continuation of that. It just keeps working.
Yeah. It's such an insane thing to say. I won't say to believe because I don't think he believes really anything he says, but to say it at all, it's like, if it turns out Trump was right at some point, well, the fact that my stepdad died of COVID doesn't bother me as much anymore. I guess we're good now. No.
Well, then ask him the next question. So since Donald Trump was pushing the lab leak theory the whole time, not leak, purposefully sent it out to the world is actually what the conspiracy theory was, not lab leak. They said they sent it out as a biological weapon. So if that was the case, then that means you want something else to be done about it, right? What did you do about it? Since it was a biological weapon that the Chinese unleashed on the world and wanted to make sure we all died. Why'd you let it happen then?
Yeah.
You didn't protect Americans like you said your number one priority is the way conservatives like to talk about how they protect Americans. You didn't protect us and you knew everything that was happening. Why not? Because you know what happened when you said that the Chinese did this to everyone? Violence against Asian Americans.
Yep.
Then that'd be Chinese. Violence against Asians across probably the world was on increase because, hey, they're out to get us. Look at that one person's face. That's the type of person that's gonna come get you. Oh man, they carry the virus like some petri dishes and they're just spreading it to everyone. Yep. This is the stupidity that branches from that kind of conspiracy theory.
Exactly, and from him it spread to right-wing media. Yeah, and if he was right, was he right about hydroxychloroquine? Was he right about bleach? Was he right about masks? Was he right about the vaccine? Dude got COVID. Was he right about anything about the gatherings? Right. Anyway, really fast, I'm gonna give you the actual updated numbers. 33,207,000 plus cases. We are now up to 63.8% of American adults who've had at least one dose of the vaccine. Supposedly, this is CDC.gov, but I've seen lower numbers at other places. 595,301 deaths, and it's holding at between 600-700 deaths per day, depending. But daily US infections are below 15,000 as of yesterday. This is the lowest that we've seen since within just a few weeks, a month, or of the beginning of the pandemic. And while vaccine doses being administered each day was trending down for a long time, it seems like it's stabilized a little bit. but it is still much lower than it was at its peak. So thankfully he's not in charge. Thankfully we got a lot of people vaccinated, but there was a lot of misinformation, a lot of death and suffering that didn't need to happen. And Donald Trump was responsible for more of it than any other individual. Well, that said, we are running very low on time. If you're watching on our linear platform, thank you for watching. We will see you tomorrow. If you're watching on Twitch or on YouTube, we've got another half hour coming for you. Some amazing videos of awesome stupidity after this. And now, more Big News Wednesday with J.R. Jackson. And now, less stress. Hey, everybody on Twitch and YouTube. That's better, right? That was a little bit better. I think that was better. I think we can all agree. You don't even need to say anything. I think we all agree 100%. We don't need a poll. It's better. Anyway, before we get back into the news, and we have some amazing videos to get to, I want to let you know about two things that are coming up. And one is coming up really soon, in just 27 minutes. Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Richey is coming up, 2:30 p.m. Eastern time, 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. You know who's gonna be joining Dr. Richey? US Senator Jon Ossoff. That's not as big of a guest as J.R. Jackson, but that's a pretty good guest. That's not bad.
I don't like this passive aggressiveness here, John.
Yeah, look, I just want to say, we've had 2 days of Indisputable. People seem to love it, and it couldn't happen to a better person. Rashad is amazing. Always love when he's on the show, and I am both sure of and hope that his show is an amazing success, just slightly less so than the Damage Report. I hope that for him, that he does almost as well as I. Anyway, so that's coming up. Also, another special. So we just had our LGBTQ special We had a lot of fun with that. Great conversations, amazing guests. Coming up on Friday, June 18th, we have our 3rd annual Juneteenth special. You can join Bridget Todd, Kenya Evelyn, Ajoa Asamoah, Dr. James Simmons, Dr. Rashad Richey. Hey, Rashad's all over the place. Jason Carter, Charles Coleman, Wazni Lambre, as they discuss reparations, diversity in politics, representation, voter outreach, and much more. That'll be coming up at 8 p.m. Eastern time, 5 p.m. Pacific time at tyt.com/live. With Benjamin Dixon hosting the first hour, JR hosting the second hour. That is an amazing lineup right there, JR. Are you excited for that?
It's fun every year, man. The Juneteenth special is both. It's always exhilarating, informative, and then also nerve-wracking for me. Because look, you went that lineup of guests, man, and everyone is way smarter than me. And so when you have to like facilitate that, I'm always like, man, I want to make sure that I get every smart thought out of these smart people in as limited time as possible. And I need to make sure that I facilitate that. That's my only worry, that I don't get enough of their intelligence broadcast.
You are gonna do an amazing job. It's gonna be great. So really fast, couple comments before we get back to the news. Brenda says, I live in Phoenix and I'm royally PO'd that these, I can't read all of that, but it's incendiary, have my ballot and are using my tax dollars for this clown show. I understand and approve of your anger. And then RKNG1 Garcia says, vets who received vaccine at VA aren't entered. Feds don't share vaccine info with state government trying to fix it. Okay, well that explains it. It's not acceptable. They've got to fix that. That's just terrible. Like of all the groups to be left out, that's bad. And finally, Lawrence Wells says, I misread the title that Gohmert was going to move to the moon for us. Yes, please, and take all his loose teeth, crowns, and caps with him. I love that people haven't forgotten about the tooth thing.
Wait, no, I missed the tooth thing. As soon as it was said, it just sounds good, funny.
Oh, there was a video where one of his teeth appeared to fall out, and I think he swallowed it, right? Didn't he swallow it?
No.
No? Oh, I thought he swallowed it. No, you don't want to lose that. That's nutritious. You got to reintegrate it into the body. So anyway, apparently what is up with Republicans on video and bits of white stuff falling out of their body? Anyway, with that, we're eventually gonna get to Louis Gohmert. But first, this. I don't know what it takes to qualify as an anti-vaccine expert, but I'm guessing not much after seeing the video we're about to show you. This is Dr. Sherry Tenpenny, who is testifying as an expert in favor of House Bill 248 in Ohio, which would keep a business or the government from requiring vaccinations. She is very concerned about vaccines, and I'm very concerned about her. Let's watch.
And some of the information that I think had been discussed on your podcast related to EMF frequencies.
That was a thought.
And
it was because right now we're all kind of hypothesizing. I mean, what is it that's actually being transmitted that's causing all of these things? Is it a combination of the protein, which now we're finding has a metal attached to it? I'm sure you've seen the pictures all over the internet of people who've had these shots and now they're magnetized. They can put a key on their forehead, it sticks. They can put spoons and forks all over them and they can stick. Because now we think that there's a metal piece to that. There's been people who've long suspected that there was some sort of an interface, yet to be defined, an interface between what's being injected in these shots and all of the 5G towers. Not proven yet, but we're trying to figure out what is it that's being transmitted to these unvaccinated people.
What is it that's being transmitted to you? She's so close to the truth too, JR. Because like what you have to come to realize is you can't try to bend the spoon. That's impossible. You must come to realize there is no spoon stuck to my head. That was in public, and she said those things on purpose.
So
it didn't work. I was Bill Gates. I want my money back.
Well, there's not enough metal in that particular set of keys. Maybe those keys are made out of aluminum.
This Blue Yeti is like total metal. I'm getting nothing off of this.
Well, again, this is what it takes to get on that kind of stage and be considered an expert. Again, she mentioned you see it all over YouTube. YouTube.
All over YouTube. On YouTube, we can mock it if we want.
YouTube, bro, I'm an expert. So therefore, The things I'm telling you are happening is off of YouTube, number one. And number two, has been proven yet, but we're getting there. What the hell are you here for then? Hey, I can have any 12-year-old walk up and say, so I watched this YouTube video, right? And they said you can stick spoons to your forehead and keys. And there's these 5G towers that are pulling our brains slowly up and higher to them. So when you start seeing people fly, it's not because they're magical, it's because they're just getting sucked into 5G towers. Anybody can say that. Is she getting paid for this appearance? Is she getting paid for her expertise in any other realm?
Well, I don't know. I don't think that she's directly getting paid, but this is about chasing clout and then sticking it to your forehead where it won't be able to be taken off. By the way, look, I'm obviously, admittedly, an arrogant little S. So I thought that I disproved this whole thing with my key test, but Seth Ian Rosen on Twitch tells me, by the way, keys are always non-magnetic. So I'm not as clever as I thought I was. Seth, don't do that. You know what you're doing. Anyway, so yes, she has some beliefs that are a little bit weird. That said, JR, I don't want us to be too quick to discount her research because you portray it as just her being on YouTube. She actually began that testimony, according to Tyler Buchanan, by saying that she's spent up to 10,000 hours researching vaccines since the pandemic began. Little problem with that. There have only been about 11,000 total hours since the Ohio state of emergency was declared. So that doesn't leave a lot of time for sleep. That said, Tyler Buchanan, her only having slept 2 hours a day for the last year is consistent with the video that I just watched. So I'm not sure you proved the point you thought you did, Tyler. I don't think her and Bob Lindell, Mike Lindell, they need to sleep. Get yourself a good pillow, you know where they are, and take a cat nap, buddy. You're losing it.
Well, apparently Giuliani let us know they also now have slippers. So it's you can even get comfortable. You can even get comfortable with your feet when you go lie down on those pillows to take yourself a couple of naps.
God, anyway, so yeah, she's the expert. One of the representatives, Jennifer Gross, a Republican, a nurse who co-sponsored the bill, saying you can't require vaccination, and in a previous meeting compared businesses that require it to the Holocaust. This is a nurse, said, "What an honor to have you here." There's no typos there. That's what she actually said. Now that said, more than 41% of Ohioans are fully vaccinated. That's good news. I think that's fairly competitive, close to competitive with the country at large. In the past week, though, the state's 7-day average vaccination rate has fallen by 17%. And that said, it is falling, in a lot of places.
Right.
But it can fall for different reasons. It's probably falling in California because so many of us are vaccinated. In other places, maybe it's because the entire government is debating whether it should exist or not. That said, the Ohio governor, supports these raffles and things like that to get people to be vaccinated. So it's not all Republicans, but man, when they're sending their experts, they're not sending their best.
Let me see. Hold on. It's not a metal spoon. But I've got a plastic one. Let's see. Let's see if it works. Oh my God. I'm magnetized to plastic.
Oh no, take down this video. Take down this video. It's gonna pull apart the whole national vaccination kit. Now it did fall off, so I assume you only had one dose. You haven't gotten your second jab yet.
It's a plastic spoon.
Oh God. J&J lets me start fires with my brain. God,
I must have gotten wrong. I think the Pfizer one allows plastic to stick to you. It's not really scientific based because there's no magnetism between plastic and the magnets in my head. But I mean, it's some new technology.
No, that's plastokinesis.
And if this goes on,
that's a tier 5 omega level mutation. Anyway.
Now this is indisputable evidence. This is now expert level stuff.
Well, hold on. We're gonna wait for Dr. Rashad Richey to determine if it's indisputable or not. But anyway, now here's what I want. Assuming that Brooke is on Twitch right now, in a minute, I'm gonna want a poll. We've got the Magneto woman. Is that dumber than what we're about to show you as we transition into this story? For a long time, Louis Gohmert has not had any interest in doing anything about climate change, which is unfortunate. Now, he has perhaps changed his view and wants something to be done, but what he wants to be done is maybe even more unfortunate. So here he is talking with an actual representative of the United States Department of Agriculture about his ideas.
And I understand from what's been testified to, the Forest Service and the BLM, you want very much to work on the issue of climate change. I was informed by the immediate past director of NASA that they have found that the moon's orbit is changing slightly, and so is the Earth's orbit around the sun. We know there's been significant solar flare activity. And so is there anything that the National Forest Service or BLM can do to change the course of the moon's orbit or the Earth's orbit around the sun? Obviously, that would have profound effects on our climate.
I would have to follow up with you on that one, Mr. Gohmert.
Yeah. Well, if you figure out a way that you in the Forest Service can make that change, I'd like to know.
Woo!
Now, before you go getting all high and mighty and implying that he is as dumb as he looks and sounds, he did give you two options. He is open-minded. The Bureau of Land Management can either move the moon's orbit or the entire Earth's orbit. Either way, take your pick, vis-a-vis the moon, vis-a-vis the sun. He's giving you two options, which that has doubled the chance that that wasn't the stupidest thing I've ever heard. What do you think, JR?
Well, I'm trying to look up the about page for the Bureau of Land Management to see what our mission. Let's see if the mission has something to do with pulling the Earth's rotation closer to the sun, or whatever the hell he just said. The Bureau of Land Management's mission is to sustain the health, diversity, and productivity of public lands for the use and enjoyment of present and future generations. I think they left off the part about having some kind of magical power to pull the Earth. What did he say again? The Earth's rotation around the sun to do something about that
orbit.
Change the orbit, and we've seen how the moon's orbit around the Earth has been changed. So therefore, maybe we can change those things. You know what's crazy about these kind of folks? They think we as just this American, whatever, this group in America, this government agency in America, can literally change Earth's orbit and the moon's orbit. We can do that because we're Americans, right? And we're just, I don't know, we're magical like that. But man's influence on the climate, man's pollution, his effect on climate change, that's just BS. That's crazy. That doesn't happen. Man can't affect the climate just changes. We can't change that, we can't explain it. But what we can do is we can change the entire Earth's rotation around the sun and the moon's rotation around the Earth, because we have the power to. It doesn't add up. We're super powerful, but we're completely weak. It's the way we've always said about everything in America, and I've said it a million times, so please don't make me go through it again. We're the weakest country in the world, but we're also the strongest. We're the richest country in the world, but we're also the poorest. And now we can't do anything about climate change, but then we can, as long as we change the Earth's orbit.
Yeah.
Please make it make.
So you did go down the path of the high and mighty. You didn't accept it as an actual proposal. I wanted to engage with it seriously, but you refused to actually do that. Look, I personally think that it's worth at least 10,000 hours of research over the next year. And I think it's important that we investigate this firsthand. What is going on with the moon? I personally think that we should send Louis Gohmert to it to check it out, the dark side specifically, and don't feel obligated to come back. So look, could you conceivably move the moon with our technology? Probably not, but it's not inconceivable. I've read this sort of nerdy sci-fi books that have that sort of thing. Is that a good idea, Louis Gohmert? No, I don't think so. And I would argue maybe there's something simpler we could do to deal with climate change. Maybe we shouldn't push the Earth away from the sun. Maybe we should stop digging coal out of the ground and burning it. How about that? How about we use the abundant wind and solar energy that we're just letting go to waste every minute of every day? How about we use that rather than reconfiguring all of the heavenly bodies? That maybe be a little bit simpler, maybe. Now look, I don't believe that he actually believes any of this or cares about any of it. There was enough of a dumb smile on his face that was consistent with him both being dumb and maybe making a joke about it. That's actually worse because he thinks that this whole thing is fundamentally a joke. But the joke or the reality, whichever it is being informed by a bunch of conspiratorial nonsense. The stuff about the orbits, the stuff about the solar flares, that's not actually affecting climate change, but that is what some people really believe, whether he does or not. It's not true though. The Earth's orbit, tilt, and spin affect the solar energy received by particular regions in the world, depending on the time of day, year, and latitude. That is true. Small changes in the Earth's tilt and the shape of the orbit around the sun cause changes in the climate for 10,000 to 100,000 years. So it's not driving climate change right now, like in the last 15 years. That's not how that works at all. There are some cycles, they don't take place like during the run of The Sopranos. That's not how any of this actually works. And it's not the solar flares either. First of all, the overall temperature versus the solar activity, bring this up. No, the temperature is going up not in sync with the Earth's exposure to solar energy. And it's not about solar flares either. That's not, he doesn't actually care about any of this. He doesn't actually care. I need to remind myself so we don't waste all of our time. But because God, he's dumb. Whether he's being honest here or not, he's dumb.
Yeah, the proof of that is if he cared, he would have looked up those same very simple cursory searches and information that you all looked up here to get this information. But like, well, so can we change it? Instead, he asks the question because he just wants to have his face out there asking stupid questions. One more thing, so I think we did find the answer though. He said small changes in the Earth's tilt and the shape of the orbit around the sun can cause changes for the climate. So if everyone on the Earth just rushes at the same time to one end of the Earth, maybe we can tilt it. You think that'll work?
You know that in physics, there's an equal and opposite reaction to everything that's done. It might be subtle, but in theory, were we to take Louis Gohmert and yeet him off the planet, that would subtly push the planet just a little bit. But anyway, all of this has been leading up to our actual plan. Conservatives of the world, you want the moon to be moved? Well, you fools, we've nearly reached enough vaccinations to magnetically draw it into the Earth. My brain is now reaching out to the magnetic cheese at the core of the moon and drawing it down where it'll kill us all.
Everyone hold up a metal cheese grater and it'll slowly come closer.
Yeah, well, the cheese grater will. It'll attach to my forehead, which is not what you want. Anyway, okay, we are running very low on time. We have time for just a little bit more. So starting today, ending tomorrow, we're gonna touch base with Barack Obama in one of his recent interviews, but I think we can get to the first of these videos now.
Sure.
Barack Obama recently sat down with Anderson Cooper, and one of the topics that came up, regrettably, was cancel culture. And I unfortunately had to watch as Barack Obama, a guy who I don't always agree with, but I think is quite smart, unfortunately bought into the right-wing narratives around cancel culture to some extent. We're gonna show you this video and then we'll respond.
A lot of the dangers of cancel culture and we're just gonna be condemning people all the time. At least among my daughters, that they'll acknowledge that sometimes among their peer group or in college campuses, you'll see folks going overboard. But they have a pretty good sense of look, we don't expect everybody to be perfect. We don't expect everybody to be politically correct all the time, but we are gonna call out institutions or individuals if they are being cruel, if they are discriminating against people. We do want to raise awareness.
So he does get it.
Somewhere in there.
He does get it. It's people advocating for their values. That's what it is. And it's not
people, and then not wanting to continue to promote people that don't and continue to reward people for bad behavior. That's all there is to it. So sure, I agree. Yes, there's people who've done great things who also have their shortcomings as human beings. We know that, from entertainers to musicians to athletes to politicians to anyone, right? People have those things. The question is, once they've discovered their shortcomings, do they do anything about it? Are they being disingenuous in their apologies? Or do they really believe what they're saying and mean what they mean when they tell us, hey, I'm sorry? Or do they come out and deny everything that they said happened? Do they then say that the person who accused them of it is now the one who's coming after everyone else and they're the bad guy? Do they gaslight us, or do they tell us, yep, I grew up a certain way and I believe this, and that. I was influenced by this, and that. Because I'm just a person that was a product of my environment. I need to do better, and I need to begin to understand the differences in the way things were. Yes, I did those things. That's a bad thing. I was young. I'm learning now. That's a way that you can have some kind of accountability for your past actions rather than denying it all and telling everyone else that they're the ones that are crazy. There's the difference there.
Yeah, and
be redeemable. That's all. Be redeemable rather than expecting to be redeemed.
Yeah, well, and try to earn some sort of redemption, actually care about whether you're improving. A lot of people that are fighting back against this are not people who are making good faith efforts and are being scorned by the purists. They're not trying at all. They're not interested in any sort of evolution or growth. They know exactly what they're doing and who they're trying to appeal to. Ellie Kemper is not canceled. Ellie Kemper seems to care and is trying. And again, he doesn't give the worst version of it, the most buying into the propaganda version of it, but he seems at least a little bit sympathetic towards it, and that does bother me. Unfortunately, JR, that is all the time that we have. Thank you as always for joining us on Big News Wednesday. It would not be the same without you.
So big, we need an hour and a half for it. Tell Rashad that I said, I'm sorry, the doctor, Rashad Richey, that I said what's up, because he's gonna take it from here.
He will, thank you. Actually, that's coming up in just a few minutes. We're gonna unfortunately have to go, but I'm gonna be on the second hour of the Young Turks with Anna Kasparian, and coming up in just a few minutes, Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Richey, Senator Jon Ossoff. How exciting is that? So TYT.com/live, also broadcasting on YouTube. I believe it's youtube.com/indisputable_TYT and twitch.tv/TYT. Very exciting content. You're not gonna wanna miss that. But until next time, stay safe out there, stay sane out there. We'll see you soon.
What's happening? Welcome to Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Richey. I'm your host. We got a big show today. We got a few guests worth mentioning. We have U.S. Senator Jon Ossoff joining us today. I also have the big homie, Benjamin Dixon. And we got former Republican Congressman out of Florida, Trey Radel. Trey Radel is going to step into the bullpen with me and debate me on things he knows nothing about, such as critical race theory. It should be a hell of a debate, all right? Make sure you stick and stay. Let's get right into it. I have Senator Jon Ossoff. Senator, good day, welcome to Indisputable.
Rashad, great to be here. Congratulations on the new show. And I gotta let everybody know that Rashad and I go way back, both being from and of Atlanta. So Rashad, congrats again on this outstanding opportunity.
My friend, I appreciate you. I appreciate your friendship. You and I have worked together inside and outside of the political realm. Your heart is towards service, and that's why I appreciate your leadership. And obviously, we were very proud when you got elected based on the policies that you represented. Let's talk about some of those policies. You got elected because people were excited about an agenda. People were able to have access to the ballot, and individuals showed up because of those dynamics. The state of Georgia then did something after your election. It decided to pass Senate Bill 202, which actually creates restrictions for people to have access to voting. You have some bills now being proposed that would basically unravel what states have been doing. You have the For the People Act. We have your bill, which is Voters Access to Water Act. Let me talk about that, Senator. The state of Georgia has literally made it a criminal offense if you hand someone a drink of water while waiting in lines, and Georgia is notorious for having long lines in black and brown precincts only. Talk about this bill and talk about how it connects to the overall bill For the People Act.
Sure. Well, look, if folks can remember the scene in Georgia in June of last year, when voters were being forced to wait in lines in Georgia that were sometimes as long as 6 or 8 or 10 hours. When the average wait times in precincts that served the black community were drastically longer than the average wait times in communities that serve predominantly white voters. One of the reasons that voters were able to stand in those lines, were able to commit to making their voices heard, withstood those unjust lines, was because Good Samaritan volunteers could offer them a bottle of water. I will never forget, I spoke to a caregiver for a woman who was over 80 years old, who had voted in every federal election for decades. She was wheelchair bound, she was on oxygen. She didn't receive her absentee ballot in time, but so committed to voting was she, that she went out and decided to vote in person. And she had to wait in a wheelchair with oxygen for hours and hours with intermittent rain. And she did so because she was passionate about participating in our democracy and making her voice heard. Well, the state of Georgia in SB 202, as you pointed out, has made it a crime punishable by up to a year in jail for a nonpartisan Good Samaritan volunteer to hand that senior citizen a bottle of water or a granola bar while she's waiting in line. That's why I introduced, alongside my colleague and brother and friend, Senator Reverend Raphael Warnock, the Voters Access to Water Act. And Rashad, the great news is that that legislation has now been incorporated into S1, the For the People Act, which we moved through the Rules Committee just a few weeks back. I came to the US Senate, you know this, steeped in a tradition, in the moral tradition of my mentor, Congressman John Lewis, who gave me my first job, who walked into a storm of billy clubs and dogs and fire hoses in 1965, marching across the Edmund Pettus Bridge. The courage of his example and the example of hundreds of others is what paved the way for passage of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. I carry his spirit. All of us who represent Georgia carry his spirit. Though he's gone, his legacy lives on. And that's why I am committed to fighting for strengthened federal voting rights protections in the US Senate.
Let's talk about the For the People Act. because it's legislation that literally creates a protection for the basics of our democracy. Democrats are on board. Every Democratic senator has co-sponsored this legislation except for Joe Manchin. Now, I know you have your Senate courtesies, but it is a damn shame that we have a Democratic senator such as Joe Manchin being adversarial to progress simply because a bill like this did not receive a Republican vote out of the House, a chamber he's not even a part of. I want to get your thoughts about how do you progress a bill like this forward if you can't get a Senator Joe Manchin on board? What should the strategy be moving forward?
Well, look, we need to pass federal voting rights protections, because what we're seeing in Georgia and Texas and Arizona are state legislatures who are using force of law, abusing their power to tilt the scales in these elections for partisan gain. That's why SB 202 in Georgia slashed the early voting period for runoffs, because as you well know, in Georgia, we have a runoff rule and the most competitive races go to runoffs. That's why SB 202 made it so much more arduous to vote by mail. And the sponsors of these bills have not been able to present a shred of evidence that the measures that they are imposing are somehow necessary to secure our elections. They are pandering to the former president of the United States, who, unwilling to accept his own defeat, has been promoting an unsubstantiated lie that he was defeated as a result of fraud. They've been unable to present any evidence. Court after court after court has shot down lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit full of these unfounded allegations. They are nevertheless pushing these bills to win elections. That's why we need to pass federal voting rights reforms. Look, I have a good relationship with Senator Manchin. Our staffs talk all the time about voting rights bills, but he previously co-sponsored the For the People Act. And so I think that the ball is in his court to let us know what he will support and to present a path forward. We got a very narrow majority in the US Senate, 50 votes and 51 if we have the vice president. We do have all to be on board. But the task of meeting this moment and passing federal voting rights guarantees is so morally significant and so important for the protection of our democracy that we have to come together as a caucus and get this done.
Here's what I'm concerned about, Senator. I'm concerned that Americans united under the common sense theory that policy actually matters, leadership matters. You had a lot of people who voted against Donald Trump, not because they really like Joe Biden, they just like Joe Biden's plan better than Trump's plan. And they voted for an agenda. And that agenda has to be carried out by leadership. So now you have this overwhelming sense from the American public to get something done. If we don't get something done, if we don't progress in these areas, when midterm elections come up, when the presidential election comes back up, Republicans will be able to blame Democrats for not getting anything done because Democrats are in control of the House. They technically control the Senate and they control the presidency, but you don't see it reflected in the leadership. I have a real concern that we're going to continue down this let's be diplomatic road until we are up for election again and we have delivered absolutely nothing for the people that we said we would deliver for. You saw President Biden just withdrew from negotiations about the infrastructure deal. He's saying, listen, these guys are not operating in good faith. How do you perform in a body like that, Senator? And I don't covet your job, brother. I know it's a difficult job because you are about actual change. How do you govern in that kind of position?
Well, look, I got to push back on you on the idea that we're not getting things done. I mean, first of all, let's talk about the American Rescue Plan, the COVID relief bill that we passed. We passed thanks to Georgia voters. It was because Georgia voters sent me and Senator Warnock to the Senate, we were able to pass that legislation. That legislation, as you know, just for Georgia alone, more than $4 billion for public schools, stimulus checks for the overwhelming majority of Americans, an expanded child tax credit so that working class and middle class families have more income. We're talking about huge investments in HBCUs. You know this, Rashad, and you're among the most staunch supporters of HBCUs that I know. You know I ran on supporting HBCUs. Yeah. When I got to the Senate, I sat down with Majority Leader Schumer, and one of the first things I said was, we need more than $1 billion for HBCUs, and it needs to be grants, not loans. We got that done.
And you got it. You got it.
Yeah. We have secured hundreds of millions of dollars to remediate lead pipes in public buildings and public schools. Yesterday, the Senate passed a huge investment in innovation, technology, research, and development. So we are getting things done in the US Senate. And among the things that we need to get done are federal voting rights guarantees and an ambitious, generational, historic investment in infrastructure and clean energy that will lay the groundwork for decades of prosperity and sustainability and reduce carbon emissions to meet the moment as we face down climate change. So we have much work to do. The path is difficult. We have achieved much, and now we have to work hard and get more done.
Yeah, when you guys first got in, man, that was a home run. It wasn't a grand slam because there was negotiation, but that's politics. But it was definitely a home run with the Relief Act. But there was significant power behind it, focus, and influence. I don't know if I see that with some of these other bills, but I will give you this. You had an agenda for HBCUs, one of your platform promises. You delivered on that agenda really within weeks of being elected. I had never seen anything like it before. And now HBCUs across this country are benefiting from your representation of that. I appreciate that. I'm a graduate of an HBCU, but as you said, we have more to go. I only got about a minute left with you, brother. Let me ask you about the Georgia hub, Georgia being a hub for clean energy and how that clean energy can create jobs for Georgians. What's your standpoint on that?
Well, look, first of all, Georgia has the largest solar panel production facility in the Western Hemisphere. We got a $2.6 billion electric vehicle battery production plant that's being built in Northeast Georgia. We have a lot of clean energy industry growing in Georgia. My ambition is that Georgia should become the national leader in clean energy technology. But this is also bigger than Georgia. The fundamental question is, will we assert American vision and American strength to make the investments necessary to ensure that humanity can prosper without destroying our own habitat? Those are the stakes as we consider infrastructure and clean energy legislation. And so that is why I am so motivated to ensure that the infrastructure bill that we pass is bold, visionary, aggressive, and has the kind of investments in emissions reduction and clean energy necessary to meet this moment and save our planet.
Yeah, that's good stuff, brother. Senator, do me a favor. I know you got to go, man. You've been generous with your time. Tell Senator Manchin to return my call. Can you do that for me? Tell him to return my call, okay?
Okay, take care.
I appreciate you, Senator. Thank you, man. We got more on the other side. Indisputable, Dr. Rashad Richey.
I'm old enough that I remember when Captain Crunch put the berries in there.
Yay, crunch berries!
And I was like, ooh, the fake berries.
Remember?
We're gonna try that.
We did a story back in the day about how a woman sued, I don't know, General Mills.
She'd been eating it for 4 years, believing that it was actual berries. Yeah, she's like, these aren't real berries at all. Yeah. I'm like, I got news for you, Captain Crunch isn't really a captain or a person. Joining me now, legendary whistleblower and American hero, Edward Snowden. First question is, hey, where are you?
I'm in my apartment in Moscow.
All of a sudden, in the studio, Jim Gaffigan, everybody.
Mental illness is, completely undiagnosed in our society.
It's not about a particular administration. It's about a broken system of power, and through that, really, the instrumentalization of a system of not justice, but injustice.
People understand whether they claim to deny climate change or not. Our collective house is in crisis. We're also dealing with the legacy of 40 years of economic policies that have made people's lives more precarious.
Sometimes you got to force people into their humanity. Sometimes you have to shake people into empathy.
Senator Elizabeth Warren joins us in the studio.
Healthcare is a basic human right, and we are fighting for basic human rights.
In order to actually achieve that vision of everyone having access to the same resources and getting to determine the outcome of their life, we have a lot of work to do, and it needs to start right now.
Here's something you may not know. When you deposit your money in a big bank, it doesn't just sit, safe and secure, in a vault. Instead, your money could end up building oil pipelines, mining for coal, or drilling in the Arctic. So if you're concerned about the planet, give your money something good to do. Make the move to green with Aspiration's fossil fuel-free account and join the thousands each week who are switching to save their dollars and save the planet at the same time.
Welcome to the Damage Report. I'm John Iadarola. This is gonna be a big one.
What Donald Trump has done as president has cut taxes for the wealthy and made life better for rich people. But he's made life worse for poor people.
We're making America great again by throwing more money at the military to destroy other countries because that makes us great instead of investing it in ourselves.
That it's Donald Trump and it's Stephen Miller. The choosing is based on wanting to create cruel and inhumane conditions to scare other people away from ever coming to the United States.
The opportunity to make money off of tragedy is the American way.
There is only one place to put garbage people: in the trash.
We've never had so much access to so much information with so little idea of what the hell is going on.
What does enforcing our borders have to do with traumatizing children? Absolutely nothing.
I think a sane person could say the current situation we have right now is radical. But what we're doing is literally making the world more like hell. That's a warning sign.
ShopTYT.com now has books. One of them is Ryan Grimm's book, We've Got People. That's a saying that AOC said, they've got money, we've got people. It's the best tracing of the AOC victory I have seen anywhere. It's the most accurate, and it's got great details. The book actually goes all the way back to Jesse Jackson and how he's the original Bernie Sanders. If you want to know how we're going to win going forward, those lessons are super important, and they're in Ryan's book. So check it out right now at ShopTYT.com.
We found the perfect person to lead the army, Allison Hartson.
The establishment media works hand in glove with our corporate legislators, and our corporate legislators work hand in glove with the corporation. And we're going to make it so that it's a decentralized force throughout the country so that we can quickly identify stories, quickly identify troll farms, and go in and neutralize the enemy, and then start building responsible media throughout the country and on every platform available.
All right, welcome back, Indisputable. Let me read some of these viewer comments. We have Leith Marrow. I may have said that wrong. Forgive me if I did. Dr. Richey and Senator Ossoff, indisputably awesome, I agree. Proud to be an early contributor to Senator Ossoff's campaign and to Dr. Richey's new show. Love that John led Senate Dems calling for the Israel-Palestine ceasefire last month. Keep up the great work, both. Thank you. Rain Day Sood, guaranteed to, if you ask an average citizen, we disagree you all are doing anything substantial beyond mega lip service, ducking and dodging, letting the Republicans steamroll democracy, not buying it. On the Move says, but Ossoff can't do it by himself. Good Lord, he's only one freaking person. Grindle says Biden isn't fighting. Costa, Kriakopolis. Damn, I messed that up. Manchin's taking Coke's calls. I'm sure he is. BC Trumpet gave out five Tier 1 community sub gifts. Thank you. Elder Mind Pulse gave out 5 Tier 1 community subs. Daisy Dragon cheered 500 bits. Johnny B. Tweeching resubscribed with Prime. You've been subscribed for 3 months, saying thank you so much for all you do, Dr. Richey. Your tireless advocacy and intellectual arguments make me feel a little bit smarter. Well, I want you to feel a lot smarter. So I still got work to do. Finelin Nero says legislatively nothing gets done either way. True, but having McConnell as leader means he gets to set the narrative and goes on the offensive. That's bad, and I do agree with that. And we got a lot more. I can't get to all of it. I would try to get to everybody or some of the ones I didn't get to on the next break. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get it. Charlottesville. Remember Charlottesville? About 4 years ago, white supremacists descended upon Charlottesville. They not only came there to march and protest, but to commit actual acts of terrorism. Now, obviously, the narrative of them being terrorists did not connect or stick to them because they, in fact, are white people with fire sticks in their hand. But I guarantee you, if they were black people carrying fire or brown people carrying fire, they would have been called criminals, thugs, terrorists, and everything else. Let's look at what happened. In 2017, Charlottesville said, we're going to take down statues of racist people. I don't care what position they held in the Confederacy, they were fighting for the institution of racism to remain alive and well. So the city said, we're taking down these statues. Well, people said no. What people? People that support Donald Trump, people that support white supremacy, people that support an adversarial agenda not connected to the soul of where this country should go. So they went there, they engaged in violence, even killed a young lady. Let me tell you why this is important. There are people who will push back at me and say, well, Rashad, that is only a statue. Why do we focus so much on statues? Let me explain to you what statues represent. See, those statues are there by way of policy. Those statues are taxpayer funded. Those statues, I am forced as a taxpayer to pay for symbols of my own oppression. Is that fair? And how many white people, how many individuals who do not subscribe to that ideology are forced to pay for these symbols that do not represent the best of us? But statues are powerful even beyond the policy. When we use the pretext of weapons of mass destruction to invade Iraq, what was the first thing that the US military did and publicized and ran on a loop on television every day? What was the first thing they did? They toppled a statue of Saddam Hussein. That is the first thing they did. They took the statue down. That statue represented something. That is the psychology of warfare. By them having their statue still up and in places of nobility and funded by taxpayer dollars, it says they have not lost the war. That's what it says. And it continues to permeate the ideology of white supremacy as if it is something that we should have normalized and accepted when we should have done nothing of the sort. Now, there's an assault happening on truth like never before. Critical race theory, it is a good thing. It's not even taught in K through 12 education, but you can't convince individuals this who believe contrary to the truth. It's all part of the same narrative. Charlottesville is now giving residents 30 days to make proposals and recommendations as to what they would like to see in the place of these statues. Another mistake. That was the first mistake they made in 2017. Take the damn statue down at 12 midnight, 2 in the morning. Do like DeKalb County government did. Do like some of these other cities did. Do it at night. Don't tell people when you're going to do it. Just we wake up in the morning and it's taken down, okay? Does it represent history? It represents treason. Those that fought in the Confederate Army committed treason against the United States government. Why are we giving those that committed treason places of honor? What country does that? We would not stand for something like this in our country if it had not been for the racism connected to it. That is the only reason these statues are alive and well today, and we have to fight so damn hard to simply take down a symbol of darkness in America. To talk more about this, I got my big homie, Benjamin Dixon, host of the Benjamin Dixon Show, progressive activist, all around good brother, man. Good to see you again. How are you, man?
I'm doing great to be here with Dr. Rashad Richey, not only holding it down and I can't say taking over Atlanta because Atlanta is yours, but also here on the internet, just laying it down, man. It's a pleasure.
Brother, I appreciate that compliment. It is a high honor to have you on the show. And before I even got this show, man, you and I, we did TYT, and I loved every moment of it. And I'm thankful to have this opportunity for you to be with me today. Let me read something from Vice News. Nearly 4 years after hundreds of right-wing extremists marched in Charlottesville, 2 Confederate statues, one that sparked the deadly rally, are finally getting torn down. During the march, you all remember this, during the march, white supremacists carried torches through the streets, chanted racial slurs, and clashed with counter-protesters, leaving 32-year-old Heather Heyer dead and many injured after a white supremacist drove a car through a crowd, according to NPR. Let's watch some of the video to remind you of the context here.
10 o'clock Friday night, hundreds of white nationalists storming the University of Virginia, protesting plans to remove a statue of Confederate General Robert E. Lee. The overnight violence spilling into this morning when marchgoers and counter-protesters clash again, hours before the Unite to Right march was even set to begin. Just after 10:30 a.m., the crowd growing in size. Local and state police in riot gear responding in force, but the violence escalating. Just before noon, Virginia's governor declaring a state of emergency. Just before 2 p.m., the situation taking that deadly turn.
Now remember, during that time, we had a white supremacist as president, and we all remember that he said, listen, there were very fine people on both sides, making a moral equivocation between racist individuals and those that protest racist individuals. But he did not stop there. Here's a double down on that statement from Donald J. Trump.
What I'm saying is this: you had a group on one side and you had a group on the other, and they came at each other with clubs, and it was vicious and it was horrible, and it was a horrible thing to watch. But there is another side. There was a group on this side, you can call them the left, or you've just called them the left, that came violently attacking the other group. So you can say what you want, but that's the way it is.
Yeah. What are your thoughts, Ben?
I think false equivalences are the foundation of gaslighting. And this country, not only Donald Trump is a master of it, this country's a master of it. The Republican Party, the conservative movement, white supremacy, they're all masters of gaslighting in that they draw a false equivalence between something that is anathema and then something that is clearly good, defending yourself. Those counter protesters, I watched online 2017, the Friday night when those Nazis marched and terrorized students who were there protesting peacefully. And so in reaction to that, you had members of the Democratic Socialists of America who came marching through the very next morning, and they came to defend those people. And so now Donald Trump has drawn a false equivalence. Violence for the sake of violence, or violence for the sake of self-defense. And they want us to lay down our right to be bombastic and, if necessary, belligerent in order to defend ourselves, but they want to keep the right to harm us. That's the false equivalence, and that's the foundation of the lie.
Don't you find it quite interesting also, Ben, that a war that literally was treason against America lasted for a very short amount of time? You're not talking about some decades-long war. They say, oh, this is part of history. Well, there are a lot of things that are part of history, but they want you to forget about certain parts of history, such as slavery. They don't want you to remember slavery. They don't want school teachers to teach the reality of slavery. They want you to forget about that, but they want you to remember things like the Confederacy, and they want to have places of nobility and honor for their statues. You know good and damn well, they understand the power of a statue. They understand the power of that statue. Here's my thing. I'm actually okay with the statue, brother. I'm okay with it, but put it in your own yard. If you are that, listen, if you are that passionate about these statues, Why don't you put your chips together as a group of white supremacists and pay to have these statues put in your own yard? I would accept that because I'm walking around this country, brother. I can't tell who's who because they don't wear sheets anymore. So at least I know who's who if you put the statue in your front yard.
I do you one better. You know who's by who is trying to uphold the Confederacy in deed, in word, in contract, and even in institution. The filibuster. You trying to defend the filibuster? To me, you're just as bad as everyone else who's out here defending the Confederacy in the year of our Lord 2021. The filibuster has roots in white supremacy and roots in disenfranchising black people, and now it's literally being used to prevent us from protecting the right to vote. So to me, even if they don't have a statue up in their front yard, the statue of the filibuster is just as ugly to me as the statue of the Confederacy.
Very well said, Ben. Very well said. Let me shift gears and talk about a new poll that recently came out that shows Americans now support the legal recognition of same-sex marriage at a rate of 70%. That is a good thing. That is a good thing. For decades, this country has made villains out of those that choose to love who they want to love. So let's go back to this whole marriage thing. When someone comes to you, especially a Christian evangelical, and they say something like, oh, you are now redefining traditional marriage. First of all, you redefine traditional marriage because I know of marriages more traditional than the Western interpretation of marriage, where a marriage was more than one person or a marriage was selected by the parents. So you've already changed the definition of traditional marriage. And how did marriage even come to be in America? Well, the marriage license was a game based in racism. Do your research. Here's how that started. You see, during the early colonizers, you did have some religious leaders who were willing to consummate marriages between individuals of mixed race. Government said, you can't do this. And so they created policies in their states that mandated the church or the couple getting married must get a government license to marry. Once again, changing the traditional understanding of marriage. And you had to get this license from the government to get married because the government would then say, we do not give licenses to marry if you are of a different race. Rooted in racism, changing the understanding of marriage. So my point is this: there has never truly been a traditional definition of marriage. It has been a cultural expression from day one. And what is marriage? What does the word actually mean? It means the joining of two. That's what it means. And it means that there's a recognition of that joining. Why would we not recognize two grown ass people who want to be recognized together? So that's my point on that. I'm glad to see that 70% of Americans are now in favor of it. Great way to celebrate the month of Pride for our brothers and sisters in the struggle in the LGBTQ community. But Ben, what are your thoughts about it?
I'm thinking that number sounds familiar. Isn't it about 70% of Americans who want to pass HR 1 or some version of HR 1 to protect the voting rights of Americans across this country? So it seems to me that we are being controlled and dominated by a very bigoted minority, right? And they don't want the liberation of all people. They want the government to continue to benefit them. When they wanted to control the definition of marriage, they used the government to change it and then control it. But now that other people are liberating and now getting to say how we are going to define our own marriages, they're saying, nope, that doesn't apply to you. So they're playing a game. It's a game of bad faith, but thankfully it sounds like we're down to 30% of Americans. So it sounds to me like most of America is progressive.
Absolutely, and the Gallup poll, they first conducted this survey in 1996. In 1996, this survey showed that only 27% of Americans believe marriages between same-sex couples should be recognized by the law as valid. It's just amazing to me that we consistently have to have arguments to make sure everyone is treated fairly. If you are an adult, and think about what Republicans do with this kind of nonsense. If you are an adult, Republicans would typically say, oh, we need less government intrusion, right? That's what they used to say. But they want more government intrusion as it relates to who you love. They want more government intrusion as it relates to a woman's right to choose or what to do with her body. They want more government intrusion in that arena. But then they say things like wearing a mask is too much government intrusion. None of this makes sense to me.
I know it makes sense to me now. It makes sense to me now because it is necessary for them to continue to play this game of flip it and reverse it. If it's something that's good for them, we want it. If it's something good for, if it's something that benefits the conservatives, they want the government involved. If it doesn't, they want the government out. But they flip and reverse it for the rest of us. If it's something that's gonna help black people, they don't want the government involved. If it's something gonna help women, LGBTQIA individuals, then they don't want the government involved. But if there's something that harms us, oh yeah, pay $2 billion a year for a local city police department. Keep spending more money on things that harm us. So as it pertains to the government, they flip it and they reverse it. If it's good for them, they want the government. If it's bad for them, they don't want the government. If it's bad for us, they want the government for black people and for marginalized communities, and that's how hypocritical they've always been.
You know, and that's a remarkable point, Ben. I was talking to my production team earlier today, and we were talking about schools and colleges, how some of them are adversarial to individuals who are members of the LGBTQ community if they happen to be a Christian institution. And here's what's so hypocritical to that. The Bible talks about thou shalt not commit adultery. And I guarantee you, a whole lot of those Christians that drop their kids off or that go to these Christian colleges, they're committing fornication and adultery.
Come on, man.
Nobody says, put on this application right here if you commit fornication or adultery. It also says thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not lie, thou shalt not bear false witness. All of that is in there. Yep. Come on, man. Usury, all of that is in there, right? But they pick and choose, and I'm making this point. The same thing they have done with the Bible is the same thing they do with legislation and policy. It's the exact same thing, same game.
They know how to leverage power for their own benefit, and they know how to leverage power against us. And they've mastered the rhetoric that's necessary to sustain those cognitive dissonances. They're the masters of those half truths that Malcolm was talking about.
Come on, brother. I'm of the mindset now that if you believe that individuals should not have equal access and equal protection, there is no way you are living a value system based on a God consciousness. And here's the reality. My atheist brothers and sisters, I have so many atheist friends, and we know some of them right here. They have a stronger value system than a whole lot of folks walking around preaching God and preaching Jesus. Quite ironic, right?
Why you think we had to leave the church, man? You know, both of us got some church in us. We had to get away from them hypocrites. I would rather deal with an honest atheist than a bigoted, hypocritical Christian any day of the week.
Come on, man. Let me remind people of the Equality Act. Once again, opposed by those on the right. What would the Equality Act actually do? Prohibits discrimination based on sex, sexual orientation, and gender identity in these areas. Public accommodations and facilities, education, federal funding, employment, housing, credit, and the jury system. Who thinks that's a bad idea to say we won't discriminate against you in these arenas based on your sexual orientation? How do we get to a point where we're even debating saying this is something we should not do in the United States of America?
That's a word. Because I mean, look at what they celebrate though. What is good to them is decidedly and objectively bad to good people. So you said, what kind of people celebrate these kind of things? Bad people. Very simply put, bad people.
Yeah. I hope that our continued effort, and I say this to everyone watching, our continued effort, we cannot allow an us and them mentality. We cannot start creating silos of our own movement. We are better as a coalition. We're fighting for protection, we're fighting for equal rights, we're fighting for equal access, we're fighting for healthcare, we're fighting for criminal justice reform. But if we just keep fighting in silos, it's one finger. But if we fight together, we're a whole fist. And that's the point I try to make to my college students when I'm out speaking and when I do my shows. We have to stay united and not get caught up in the narrative of the oppressor fighting for each other and with each other.
Come on, somebody. Hello. The narrative of the oppressor versus the narrative of the oppressed. Because those of us who have been oppressed in this country, we have had to survive. And what the oppressor has had to do is to continuously find new ways to keep us trapped. And I believe, Dr. Richey, I believe that we're at the end of that game. Because we're down to where the rubber meets the road. Are y'all gonna help defend voting rights or not? You're gonna worship the filibuster, or are you gonna protect the people who've been saving this country from white supremacy since we've been here? And I think the Democrats have a proposition in front of them. They're gonna have to make up their mind. What are they really about? Are they going to help us continue to save this country? Which means you got to get rid of the filibuster, then which means, you got to do something for the people now, or are you going to be complicit with white supremacy?
Well said, my friend. We got more on the other side. I got Ben Dixon. This is Indisputable.
I'll predict right here for you, Chris. I think Donald Trump will leave office before his term is up. He'll be humiliated, embarrassed, and I know him. He's not going to want to lose, and he's going to run for the hills.
You got that bet all day long.
Okay, let's get after it. Now, so look, Jake has made some good predictions, and this is in good fun. I could not disagree more.
There's no bromance between the two of them. You got that bet all day long, Janky, you. You stop. In the meantime, let's call him out on the damage.
But
I just got a Roku set. That'll basically a little bit of channel surfing, and I was like, there we are.
Yeah.
There we are. And then I turned it on, and it was John and Brett on Damage Report making fun of me.
Oh no.
So you are so busted. I even took a picture of it, okay? And they're talking about my predictions. I got a new prediction for you, John Iadarola.
You're doing a show that's blowing the doors off everybody.
Young Turks is the largest online news network, not a big deal. We're gonna rock the boat. We're gonna be counter-establishment. We're gonna tell people the truth to the best of our abilities. We're so sick of this corruption. We're not the robots on TV. I actually care about the news. Guilty, I care. Fourth day on Occupy Wall Street. Last night we launched Wolfpack. It's us pushing our ideas out there, trying to help the country in every way that we can, trying to make this place just a little bit better. Reporting from the Hillary-Bernie debate. I gotta be honest, you know what we do, we cover it for real. For us, this system isn't working. Free and fair elections.
And when he told the cops that day, when they came to drag her away, and he said, if you're gonna chain her, you're gonna chain me. If you're gonna arrest her, you're gonna arrest me.
Bartholomew Joseph Kyle. I do audio for the main show, The Young Turks. I also do audio for Post Game. I started in 2006. I met Cenk Uygur at the Iraq for Sale screening that was directed by Robert Greenwald. And watching that, I want to figure out a way to be part of something that's genuine and authentic.
Welcome back. When I take an analysis of my life, every racist person I know is a Christian. I just thought about that during the break. Like every single, I don't know a racist atheist, but every single racist person I know is in fact a Christian. There's definitely a disconnect. Let me read some of the viewer comments. Someone who likes Bernie Sanders says, Ben Dixon and Rashad Richey at the same time. I didn't know it was legal to have so much power concentrated on one stream. Here's the thing, man. It's actually not legal. We are going to have a warrant for our arrest after this show.
Especially if you're driving through Cobb County.
Exactly. Cobb County, COBB, count on being busted, caught out being black. That's an inside joke with being Ben. All right, Kajon Dragon says, making me wear a mask and fridges upon my freedoms, says the same person who can't wait to deny freedoms to gays and minorities. Height of hypocrisy. Great point. Cray Cray Souffle, hallelujah. And it's horrific. It took 100+ years to finally get rid of those giant symbols of racist losers. And they're still not gone. Benaloco, super chat. They been saying the South is gonna rise again for the last 200 years. Did y'all think they were kidding? Max Hanna says, loving Indisputable and seeing you every day, Dr. Richey. Your fire and intelligence is an awesome addition to my daily TYT consumption. Well, thank you very kindly. Beth Waller says, marriage is a contract between consenting adults. That's it, yes. Alexa, Meryl Dragon Queen. My cat is watching Dr. Richey with me. She's progressive too. Good stuff. On the Move says, my dad voted for Trump twice. He's black. I'm thinking about disowning him, LOL. Well, listen, I understand your sentiment. Don't disown your dad, but I would highly consider an intervention, okay? On the Move also says, love is love who you want. Not sure why it would affect the next person who someone else marries. That's true. Twitch activity, Twitch folks. Heidi Meter is gifting 50 tier 1 subs to TYT's community. They've gifted a total of 873 in the channel. Wow. Central Committee rating with a party of 649. Boom. Thank you. Sorkin Dragon, I know some really racist Christians. As I said, I do too. Yeah, sad, isn't it? All right, thank you so much for all of these comments. Beautiful stuff. Ben, you and I have had a lot of different conversations about things happening with Joe Manchin, policy, AOC. But man, if we had the spirit of AOC in the White House, we could actually get something done. So AOC, during an appearance on All In with Chris Hayes, the representative said that she doesn't buy Manchin's opposition to HR 1. Now remember, Senator Joe Manchin said, the reason why I'm opposing it is because it's the wrong legislation to bring us all together. As Senator Jon Ossoff pointed out, he at one time supported For the People Act. He at one time was a supporter of it. Well, now what we've been saying on this show and other shows have been saying, follow the corporate Democratic dollars. Now AOC is bringing new light to that claim against Manchin. Let's go to the first video.
HR 1 stands up against lobbyists and dark money. And I would reckon to think that this is probably just as much a part of Joe Manchin's calculus as anything else. Because when it comes to this bipartisan argument, I gotta tell you, I don't buy it. Because Joe Manchin has voted for bills that have not been bipartisan before. Look at the American Rescue Plan. So this is not just about bipartisanship.
What a great hypocrisy she pointed out from Senator Joe Manchin. Yesterday, I said very clearly, it was hogwash that the reason he gave is a legitimate reason, because he basically said the only reason why I'm not supporting the bill is because it received no Republican votes out of the House. Bull, because you have supported bills that did not receive Republican votes from the House. You've done this before. So she's now calling out the fact that he's connected to corporate money, corporate influence, something we've been saying since day one. Here's another look at what AOC said.
Because you look at the Koch brothers and you look at organizations like the Heritage Foundation and conservative lobby groups that are doing a victory lap, claiming victory over the fact that Manchin refuses to change on the filibuster. And I think that these two things are very closely intertwined.
oh, I looked at my wrist, I got time today. She got more.
There's a desire to make this just about protecting the franchise, but protecting our democracy is also about making sure that we give lobbyists and dark money groups, which are funding these attacks on the right to vote, the boot. But corporate money has a very, very tight grip on both parties. And I think that has to do with the calculus in this situation that people aren't really discussing enough.
Hey, run that last bit of truth, my dear sister AOC said.
There are some members that, represent communities that have never really had their right to vote attacked in a way. They don't represent communities for which this is a very real threat. And so I think they don't think it is as real as it very much is. I mean, Joe Manchin represents a state that is not very diverse. Joe Manchin does not represent a very large population of Black voters whose right to vote is constantly under attack. I see this as well in the House of Representatives, how there usually is hesitancy, or it's a little bit more of a debate when a member has to take out a risky vote on a community that they don't represent. And so that representation and that plight isn't as internalized. I think that people think that for whom their right to vote hasn't been under attack, that this is something that is overblown when it very much is not.
Yeah, West Virginia needs more Black people. So basically the population of Black folks in West Virginia is in the single digits. You have more Black people in metropolitan Atlanta than in the entire state of West Virginia. That becomes part of the calculation of his politics. But the overwhelming reality is that he's connected to money that tells him what to do. Ben?
I think AOC may have, all the clips were amazing in, solidarity with AOC and what she's doing, the fight, the squad, all of them, because they're not only getting attacked from the right, they're getting attacked from some individuals that call themselves on the left. But that said, I think I have one slight disagreement with her in the end, in that she's trying to extend one more grace to them and saying maybe perhaps it's the fact that none of these people have had to deal with their voting rights being attacked. And that's the justification for why they can't understand, or they don't feel like this is a problem, or they feel like this is overblown. No, they know exactly what they're doing, and they know exactly the game to play. And they also know if anyone ever tried to do to them what they did to us and what they're doing to us, they'd have a lot more problems on their hands than just us marching up the steps. Like they will use violence to get what they want if we have done any of the things that conservatives have done to Black people in this country and what they're attempting to do to workers and to voters right now.
Look how deep this goes. Lobbyists, corporations, they don't have to pay off everybody. They literally just have to pay off 2 or 3 people. They already got the Republicans. And I think they got the Republicans for free because they are simply an adversarial party to Democrats. So if Democrats say it, you already have the Republicans on the other side. Now all you gotta do as a corporation is pick off or pay off 1 or 2 Democrats, and you have your position serviced by an elected official.
Yeah, no, it's a master plan that they have been executing for at least a good 40 years, and it's coming to a head for conservatives. They are in a position, they're playing for keeps. They're playing for the whole ball game. They have an agenda, and they're executing it.
That's the one thing I wish we would adopt from their playbook. Play for keeps. Stop this whataboutism. This, it could lead to a slippery slope. Damn it, we're already on the slope. Okay, it doesn't get more slippery than this. Let me shift gears because I don't have unlimited time, unfortunately. I wish a Karen would. My new segment, everything is new on this show because it's a new show. So we look at what Karen is doing from across the United States. And we've had male Karens, we've had female Karens. In the latest edition of our investigative reporting of I Wish a Karen Would, today's Karen is Dr. Karen. Dr. Karen is from Ohio. Dr. Karen is trying to protect all of us from the vaccination. That's what she's doing. She says It turns us into magnets. Now, when you see this video, I want you to peep something. You have one Karen doing the talking, but then there's a Karen behind her agreeing. Here's Dr. Karen.
Some of the information that I think had been discussed on your podcast related to EMF frequencies.
That was a thought.
And
it was because right now we're all kind of hypothesizing. I mean, what is it that's actually being transmitted that's causing all of these things? Is it a combination of the protein, which now we're finding has a metal attached to it? I'm sure you've seen the pictures all over the internet of people who've had these shots and now they're magnetized. They can put a key on their forehead, it sticks. They can put spoons and forks all over them and they can stick, because now we think that there's a metal piece to that.
I almost fell out my damn seat. So it turns us into Magneto. It turns us into an X-Man. That's what this does. Makes perfect sense to me. I don't know why I didn't catch it at first, but that's not it, ladies and gentlemen. There's more.
There's been people who've long suspected that there was some sort of an interface, yet to be defined, an interface between what's being injected in these shots and all of the 5G towers. Not proven yet, but we're trying to figure out what is it that's being transmitted to these unvaccinated people.
Can we take a moment of silence for her stupidity? Just give me 5 seconds. And then the Karen behind her, who's shaking her head in agreement to all of this. So number one, the vaccine turns us into Magneto. First of all, that's a freaking superpower. That's a great side effect. I could do a lot with that superpower. And then she says, and it's connecting us to 5G technology. No proof, but you're supposed to be some kind of scientist, but you're making conclusions based on something that has absolutely no proof. Ben.
This is the level of stupidity that they have to go to in order to sustain this empire, right? We're at the level of DEFCON 5 of stupidity, where we're talking about cell towers and magnetism coming out of a vaccine. And it's all honestly connected to the disingenuous bad faith game that's being played on us, not just by conservatives. I want to broaden that out, but by the ruling elite in this country in general. Right? They need us to be as ignorant as this Karen was in this clip, because I've never, honestly, Dr. Richey, I don't know if I've seen somebody be that proud to be that ignorant in public, except for Donald Trump and George W. Bush.
Well said, Ben. It has been a pleasure having you on the program. Tell people how they can follow you and connect.
They can follow me anywhere you're watching streams: Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, all the above. Dr. Richey, it's a pleasure. I'm honored to be here with you, man.
Thank you, my friend. The feeling is 100% mutual. Ladies and gentlemen, on the other side of the break, we have the bullpen. We got Trey Radel, former United States congressman out of the state of Florida. He actually works for a Fox News affiliate. He has a radio show, FM radio show in Florida, very successful radio show, by the way, of Trumpites, right? Only Trumpite listens to this guy. He has been on a rant about critical race theory, completely mischaracterizing what it means. I have debated Trey Radel before. This is going to be interesting to discuss race relations with former Congressman Trey Radel. Not sure exactly where he's going to go in the discussion. And let me give you all some inside baseball with how I do debates. I do not allow any debate person or any person I debate to tell me what to talk about. I also do not have some kind of list of what's acceptable for me to talk about. If you want to debate it, you bring it to the table. If you don't want to debate it, then stay away from the table. This is an honest conversation, and it should be as transparent as possible for your sake, all right? So we're gonna have that debate on the other side. Stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen, for the bullpen on Indisputable.
Are you our next stream star?
Oh my God, that's me?
Show us what you got with your Twitch pitch. All you need to do is put together a 2-minute audition video on why you should have your own stream on TYT, and then put it on Twitter and use the hashtag TwitchPitch, plus tag us at The Young Turks. And if you needed even more information than that, tyt.com/TwitchPitch has all the info you need. I can't wait to see your videos.
All right, welcome to Dr. Rashad Richey, Indisputable. This is going to be quite interesting. I don't know if you can handle this much truth on any day of the week. The unrest inside of the black community and communities that support them is because these cops are not held accountable. You have a family calling 911, and that family is expecting help, not expecting their loved one to be killed by the very people they pay to protect and serve them. Did you ever notice a cop that you work with call any black person the N-word or target people because they were black? Nope. But we disagree that somehow police officers are not also subject to the same systemic biases and racism as any other level of law enforcement.
It sounds like for everybody's need who wants to crucify the cops without looking at it.
No, crucify bad cops, brother.
Of
bad
course.
Cops.
We don't need the government to step into our lives mandating that we should be wearing a mask.
You think you putting on a mask, Trey, is government intrusion, but you don't think the government telling a woman what she can or cannot do with her body it isn't government intrusion.
Where does life begin?
You want to go there? I can read it to you, brother.
You seem very well prepared. Certainly more.
Of course, why would I not be well prepared? They don't stop, I don't stop. Racism won't stop, I won't stop. Systemic bias won't stop, I won't stop. People still need health care, so I won't stop. People still need criminal justice systems reform throughout this country, so I won't stop, and you won't stop either.
I've been a fan of TYT, I believe, for the last 6 years.
5 years.
3 years now. 7 years.
4 years now.
2.5 years. I just started because she got me into it.
My boyfriend actually watches it every morning and every night, so I kind of just started watching it with him, and I love it. I mean, it's the only way that I find my news.
Looking through YouTube, looking for political shows that look cool.
I came across a very angry rant from Cenk, and that's when I knew.
So I was immediately in love with the show.
And then I had haven't missed a live show since then.
10 times a day, I watched the show in the morning.
Whenever I had a bad day at high school, Young Turks.
Man, Cenk is just so blunt and honest, and I love the honesty, and there's no BS behind the news, and they just tell everything like it is.
There's nobody censoring them. There's nobody there to say, you can't do this, you can't say that.
That feel of authenticity makes it seem like what they're saying is true.
I feel like I get the real story from the Young Turks.
I am TYT.
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 Breaking news with Brett Ehrlich. This is Brett Ehrlich with breaking news with Brett Ehrlich. Bernie Sanders wants to break Wall Street, and he wants to break it real bad. Our system is inherently rigged against the will of the people.
They have 50% of the vote, and in a democracy, they should have 50% of the seats.
But if you live in an insanely gerrymandered district, your vote functionally doesn't matter.
We drew the map in a way that even though we get 50% of the vote, we're gonna get 13 out of the 18 seats.
You don't actually have the ability to translate the will of the voters in your area into actual government policy.
They should not be allowed to gerrymander these districts. We should actually have a democracy.
Welcome to the bullpen. You're watching Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Richey. Before I go to the bullpen, before I go to my debate guest, former Congressman Trey Radel, let me read some of these viewer comments. We have a lot of them. Also, don't forget, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube page, Indisputable TYT, youtube.com/Indisputable TYT. You can watch me live there anytime. Subscribe. We're trying to get up to about 100,000 indisputables. All right. YouTube.com/Indisputable TYT. You can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Same way, Indisputable TYT. Let's read some of the comments. McNafi says, keys are not deliberately not magnetic. Super chat, Czar. Thank you so much, Czar. For that super chat. Sun Dragon, thank you. Dr. Richey, loving your show. Hello, Mr. Dixon. Your show is great. Supremacist are okay with wearing a hood but not a mask. What's up with that? Exactly. I've had the same question for a long time. Maybe Trey Radel can answer that one. Let's go to, I got Carrie Venus. Hiya, thank you so much in the super chat. Buford says, holy stupid. Yep, exactly. We have a lot. Samuel Vimes is on the internet, the ultimate proof. AKA man says, damn, Richey on fire. Well, thank you. Beth Waller says, follow the money. 99% of the time, that's all you have to follow. Rotor Ricu, let me get this right. Rito Ricu, I think. If you were magnetized, you would die. No, not if you're Magneto. Okay. LMAO, this segment is awesome. My new favorite segment. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, let's go to our debate guest. We have Trey Radel. Trey Radel, former US Congressman, radio host extraordinaire out of Florida. Seems to be a guy who has common sense until you actually engage in in-depth conversation. Trey, how are you?
Oh, come on. Hold on, brother. Quick. Let me remove this metal pen from the back of my head. Damn, Bill Gates shooting this stuff into my veins, and now I'm magnetized. Damn.
What do you think about that? But before we get into the debate, because this person, I promise you, a Trump supporter. She believes that the election was stolen. Listen, man, you know I'm telling the truth. She believes the election was stolen. She believes in the conspiracy theories of QAnon. And this person calls herself a doctor. This is problematic for the movement of the conservative party, is it not?
Yeah, it is, but I could go anywhere in the United States and go find stupid. And they may be associated with conservatives, may be associated with liberals. And it's a problem. It's a problem on both sides, most especially when you right now doing what you're doing, you're picking the stupidest idiot out of the bunch and putting her to your millions of viewers online right now and saying, look at these people, they're the conservatives.
But see, that's the thing, Trey, she's not the stupidest.
You and I have talked before.
Trey,
I'm so far right, I meet the left.
Listen, she's not the stupidest person I can find. Yeah, but brother, she's not the stupidest person I can find. That's the one correction I would make. Okay, let's talk about critical race theory. CRT, critical race theory. I've heard some of your rants about it. I completely disagree with your analysis of it. What's your beef with race relations or critical race theory? And what's up with these lawmakers passing bills, quote unquote, banning critical race theory in K through 12 education?
So, man, where do we start with this? Let me try and rip through this real quick. I know you've got valuable time on your hands. So, first of all, when it comes to banning it, I don't even know what that means in terms of the legislation or what the exact curriculum means in school. Let me get to critical race theory and say, here I am on your network, your show, a white dude, a conservative, because you and I have talked extensively about race relations, about racism in this country, how it is pervasive through various systems, which I'll get to. But my biggest problem with this is that it is race first. It's a race first interpretation of all of our social dynamics. And I think that there are some problems with that when you start talking about a race first interpretation of problems in society and telling young people K through 12 that this is because of white supremacy. And if I'm telling your children, doctor, or young kids throughout wherever you live, if you're in Atlanta, Chicago, Los Angeles right now, that the bane of your existence, the problem that you have is because of white supremacy. I'm not even using the words white people, but unfortunately, I think that gets interpreted by young people as white people. And that begins to it adds more fuel to the fire of the racist tendencies that we already have in this country. My second part to this is that I believe that critical race theory totally discredits merit. And what I mean by that is these cheesy ass things like hard work and going out there and earning a living and all of that. And I would also apply that now statistically to asking, how do you apply critical race theory to the success of minorities in this country, like the Jewish population, or the fact that Asian American males out-earn everyone?
So let's go back to one of your conclusions. You actually said that you believe systemic racism or institutional racism exists. So let's start there. It exists, correct? So
100%. You and I have talked about it before, right? Specifically with the criminal justice system,
right? It exists. Hold on, no, Trey. I allowed you to talk, brother. It exists, which means it's a reality that students will have to face. Are you with me so far?
Sure.
Okay. Since it's a reality that students will have to face, eliminating the lesson of that reality is a problem in the preparation of that student entering into the real world. And if it is a problem, Congressman, that means we have a generation of problem solvers that can remedy the problem if they are properly taught what the problem is. Number two, critical race theory is an advanced theoretical framework and not taught in K through 12 education. So when you look at the bills that are being passed in all of these state Republican-controlled legislatures, none of these bills have the terminology critical race theory written in the bill. What they're using is critical race theory as the shiny object to get another agenda accomplished. In the bill, it actually stops teachers from being able to teach what you just described as a problem. It says that K through 12 educators cannot teach how racism in institutions play out in the American social construct. That is a problem. Teachers don't teach K through 12 education critical race theory. The vast majority of them are not trained on critical race theory. I would dare argue you don't even know what critical race theory is because nobody taught you. I was actually trained under the theory and I teach the theory at the university. It's like saying you are an expert on socialist theory, or you're an expert on the theory of leadership psychology, or you're an expert on transactional leadership. If you haven't studied these things in those theoretical frameworks, you can understand some elements of it, but you don't understand the theoretical framework of how it's applied in higher education and academia. So why are lawmakers lying to people, saying that they are in fact banning critical race theory, when the truth is, Trey, they're banning what you have said on my show is something that's wrong with America. They're banning the teaching of true history.
So let me take that from sort of back to front. If you recall, just 2 minutes ago, I started with, I don't think that lawmakers really have a definition, or school teachers or school
Republican lawmakers. Make it clear, no Democrats are signing off on this.
Listen to me, Doctor. You know that I'm the first to slam Republicans just as much as I do.
Well, go ahead and slam them, brother. Slam them right now with the show.
Whatever the hell that they can,
but Trey,
to rally their bases and garner more. But
Republican lawmakers are the only ones doing this. Slam them specifically.
There, slam, boom. I'll friggin' hit him with my magnetic powers. So listen, I talk about systemic racism and have extensively with you previously. But I think that there's a few things that I have an issue with. And hell, I'd ask you, why don't you educate me on more of the theory? But first, I would talk about the difference between systemic and systematic. And where I see that shaking out is systemic is I can draw conclusions like this. I'm Trey from the suburbs of Ohio. I got a close friend here in Florida who's also Trey from an all-black neighborhood in an area that earned a nickname of Lil Pakistan because it is horrific. The crime rates, the broken, it's terrible, right? This kid's upbringing was radically different from mine, right? Like you look at the way that we both were raised, and I realize that for part of me, my difference does come from white privilege. Again, something I know and accept. Here's my problem with that. When we talk about white supremacy or white privilege, I think that unfortunately it's often used to simply shut down somebody from even having an opinion. So it's just like mansplaining. Hey, can I talk about abortion, women's health issues, this or that? No, because you have a certain body part. No mansplaining. You can't talk about this because you have white privilege. But when we look at this bigger picture of critical race theory and white supremacy, my difference of systemic racism and systematic is that systematic is saying that whites are doing this to you every single day. And that's a freaking problem when you're teaching a young child that whites are the reason that you are living in poverty, don't have a father or mother at home, and your situation is just terrible all around.
Oh man, let me help you out here, brother. Because I do think you have a fundamental misunderstanding of critical race theory. So we've already established that critical race theory is not even taught in K through 12 education. So it is dishonest for Republicans to say they're signing legislation to ban critical race theory when the wording when the wording isn't even codified in the language of the bill. Let's talk about what you just described as systemic versus systematic. Here's what critical race theory does, and here's what an element of that theory does. It de-emphasizes the individual and it places a critical analysis on the institutional norm and how that policy or law or statute expressed itself and created bias. And the individuals who wrote them, some of them were implicitly biased or some of them had what we call hyper bias. But it doesn't matter when the policy expresses itself in a bias. I will give you an example of a policy that expresses itself in bias. The Constitution says I'm 3/5 of a man. That's what it said. That is a policy that expressed itself in bias. The Declaration of Independence called Native Americans savages. That, another founding document of this country, expressed itself in bias. The fact that black people could not vote, the fact that black folks had to sit at certain places in restaurants, all of those traditions of our legal system and statutory code created designs. And those designs are still here, even if you decrease significantly the number of actual racists in America. If you do not critically analyze the design of these institutional policies, you will still have unequal outcomes. That's what critical race theory suggests you analyze. It is not indoctrination. Critical race theory simply asks and poses a question. That's all it does. In order for you to analyze institutions and de-emphasize individual racists.
So all of that I'm fine with. But when you look at the definition according to two different areas here, that it is inherent that the United States inherently racist insofar as it functions, creates, maintains social, economic, political inequalities between whites and non-whites, and that whites are the perpetrators, or that it is unified by, loosely by the way, which is a little weird that they use that kind of ambiguous language, two themes: white supremacy in its social structural racism exists. Look, I think that you and I.
Where are you reading that from, Congressman? Where are you reading that from?
I've got directly from the Dictionary Britannica. The other is Wikipedia. The way that it sums up
those were written by white folks. So let me give you the real definition of critical race theory. Do you know when critical race theory was created? Do you know?
I believe that it started out in the 1960s and then was more solidified in the 1980s. And
you are correct. So basically, the 1970s is when legal scholars, most of them understanding the diversity requirement for this nation to actually have equity or equitable outcome. So this comes from a legal scholarship doctrine in the 1970s. You don't find it ironic, Trey, that a critical theory that has been around since the 1970s is all of a sudden enemy number one after Donald J. Trump said that he wanted to ban it in the federal government? You don't find that ironic, brother, that you've never talked about this before in your natural life until Donald J. Trump said something about it while he was president of the United States? Did we lose Trey?
I'm with you on all of that.
Okay.
I will sit here and slam Republicans. Am I still with you?
You're going in and out. You're getting choppy.
Yeah, and so are you.
Okay. I don't know what's happening. I think your computer's trying to save you, Trey.
This is. No, it's not. Don't you give me that. I'm still.
All right.
Dr.
Man, we're losing Trey.
Still hear me? All right.
Okay. Listen, I think we've lost the feed.
I can try and disconnect and reconnect. I know you're tight on time.
All right, so try to do that, brother. I can talk about you until you come back, and the longer you take, the more I'm going to talk about you. So the issue with Trey Radel is common. Now, keep in mind, Trey Radel has admitted on this show that systemic racism exists, that institutional racism exists, and here's something that they don't want taught. They don't want taught that America is inherently racist, but it is. America is inherently racist. Let me just do a simple, okay, that's much better. You just said, and you had a problem with a statement about America being inherently racist. Now that's actually something I agree with. I believe America is inherently racist based on the understanding of inheritance, which is the etymology of the word inherently. Inheritance means what you have been given by way of tradition or lineage. That's what inheritance means. We agree to that, correct?
Yes, I'm with you on all of this. Go ahead.
Okay, so you with me on that. The inheritance of this nation goes back to the foundation of the country. And the foundation of the country was rooted in the ideology that white people of means, influence, and money could own black people in the United States. So when we say America is inherently racist, that means America inherited the racism from the formation of the country. You don't get away from that inheritance in the United States of America, and that is the inheritance we are fighting against every day. It is a bad inheritance.
Where does this end up? Like what, okay. So look, you and I could sit here and talk about race all day, and I think you know where I stand. I'm a white dude from Ohio that speaks 3 languages, one of them Spanish. I didn't go travel through Latin America because I hate brown people. I love culture, I love people. But when I keep hearing over and over, you can't have opinions on this because of white privilege. You've inherited racism.
I'm not saying that, brother.
I know that.
I'm not saying that. I brought you on the show. Let me tell you what it ends up, where it should end up. A critical analysis of the policies and making sure we create policies that encourage diversity, that speak to the melting pot tradition of what this nation can be. That is how you change it. But you don't get there if you're teaching children that there's no problem with institutions that they are about to connect with. My second doctorate degree is in how institutional racism is inside of higher education. You don't get away from it. How are we not preparing K through 12 students? And remember, they're not learning critical race theory. But if you're not even teaching the reality of the inheritance of this country, which is steeped in racism and bigotry and slavery, if you're not teaching that, then you provide or you create students that provide no remedy for it moving forward. And the other part is this, Trey, and this is what's dangerous, man. If we are creating laws to say K through 12 educators can no longer teach racism in a particular context, do you know how many school teachers I can find on YouTube right now who were caught teaching that Hitler was actually a good person? Do you know how many school teachers were caught teaching that white supremacy was a legitimate mainstream idea, or that black people's brains were smaller than white people's brains? We have those educators who are on record. Not one damn state legislature passed a law saying stop teaching that. Not one. Explain that to me.
Dr. Richey, look, where you've taken this to next, and I know that you're limited on time, is what I would love to come on another time and talk with you about, debate with you about, is where government fits into this. Because you know where we are definitely going to be very separate on is how government takes a role in our lives to institute equality, because that becomes a major problem. And I'll leave this thought with you if we're getting tight on time here.
Sure.
I think that one of the best examples of systemic racism in this country would be our government-run schools. If I want to go find that crappy, underperforming school in the United States, inner cities, because of systemic racism perpetrated by the federal government decade after decade. Democratic cities by Democratic mayors who have absolutely crapped all over their public school systems, and they are the worst in the country. That's systemic racism.
Okay, all right, let me go ahead and throw in some real statistics since you threw Democratic mayors and Democratic cities. The 7 out of the 8 poorest states in the United States of America but let me explain, are actually controlled by Republicans. The worst educational systems in the United States of America are under Republican leadership. I just want to make sure I provide that for context. I will have you back on the show, Congressman Radel. I appreciate you joining me on Indisputable. All right.
Oh, while we may disagree, I really love being with you, bud.
I appreciate you, man. Thank you. Always lively with former Congressman Trey Radel. Ladies and gentlemen, a few things I want you to remember. Take care of yourself, take care of each other, take care of the planet, and remember the truth is always indisputable.